Chapter 197. I also miss third elder sister very much. Luo Jingying gritted her teeth and said, "In that case, we sisters really think of the same thing. Speaking of which, you and I were born 2 days after each other, but in fact, we were only separated by a few hours. Tell me, why didn't you reincarnate into my mother's belly? Then we would be twins. In that case, you would be a concubine after entering Prince Rui's mansion. It's really unfair for you to be a concubine." Jingwan said with a sigh. Yes, why didn't she reincarnate into the second branch? That way, everything that Luo Jingwan had since she was a child would belong to her. She wouldn't have to be suppressed by Luo Jingwan all the time, and she still couldn't live a peaceful life. She had already taken out the best things, but she still couldn't compare to Luo Jingwan. She looked at Luo Jingwan's tender appearance and thought about how the items in Rouge Pavilion were already ridiculously expensive to begin with, but they were sold to her at double the price. Needless to say, it was definitely this B*TCH's doing. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. "Ah, fourth younger sister, are you serious?" Jingwan chuckled. "You're so naive. Although reincarnation is a technical job, if you screw up, no matter how good your reincarnation is, you'll probably be done for. Don't you think so, fourth sister?" "Luo Jingwan, it's fine if you don't follow the rules at home, but it's too ugly if you still act like this after marriage. Even if you don't think for yourself, you should think for the child in your belly. When the child is born and knows that he has such an unruly mother, he will be ashamed to see others." Jingwan glanced at Luo Jingying's flat belly and then looked at her undeveloped body. It was a sin. This child was too important for Luo Jingying. It was the foundation of her life. When she gave birth to her eldest son, Prince Rui would ask for the title of concubine for her. At that time, princess consort would be the princess consort. Without a son, she could only hide. Thinking of this, Luo Jingying tried her best to calm her anger. When she looked at Jingwan again, she suddenly laughed and waved the servant girls who were waiting on her to leave. These people understood her temper, so they obediently retreated. However, she couldn't order Jingwan's servants around. They completely ignored her. Jingwan just raised her chin, and Nanny Gong and 2 servant girls left. They were well behaved, and their clothes were not out of place. Third sister is right. This child is as important as my life. Speaking of which, I may be lacking in other aspects, but God is still kind to me. He gave me a child on my first time. But after third sister gets married, I don't know if you'll be so lucky. But it doesn't matter. I'll keep my son's little clothes for you. You have to know that it's only once." So many people beg for it, but can't. Jingwan looked at her with a subtle expression. Even now, the world should know that 13 or 14 years old was too young to have a child. Of course, even if the in-laws knew this, they would not make things difficult for their children. Therefore, for a girl who married early, only the mother would tell her and even prepare some medicine. Looking at Luo Jingying, she seemed to be completely unaware of the danger and was very proud of it. Jingwan didn't know that at the beginning, Luo Jingying persuaded her parents with the idea of giving birth to their eldest son. At that time, Madame Lu was still dreaming of restoring her family's glory. She thought that this woman would be in danger whenever she gave birth, and that her daughter wouldn't be so unlucky. Later, she realized that Luo Jingying was an ingrate and was too lazy to remind her. Luo Jingying misunderstood Jingwan's gaze as envy and jealousy, so she smiled even more brightly. "Third sister, you don't have to be jealous, huh?" Jingwan sneered without hiding her sarcasm. She was no longer polite. "Are you crazy? Jealous of you? Jealous of you? Jealous of your ignorance? With your small body, you haven't even grown up yet. Do you want to have a child? Do you want to die? Luo Jingying, it's sad that you have fallen to this point and don't know anything. What nonsense are you talking about?" Luo Jingying glared at Jingwan. "If you give birth to a son, it's probably better. Princess Rui doesn't have a son, so she will raise him under her own name. It's hard to say whether she will give him the title of a legitimate son. But if Princess Rui gives birth to a legitimate son, your son, the eldest son, will be an obstacle that must be eradicated. If you give birth to a daughter, your daughter will most likely be worse than your second sister. After all, you, the legitimate daughter, are younger than your second sister. Princess Rue's 2 daughters are much older than your daughter. Don't say that it's impossible. What you can do, others can naturally do. It's just an eye for an eye. Luo Jingwan, don't think that you can fool me like this. The Luo family all say that you have a good heart. You should let them see how vicious and black your heart is. Luo Jingying said fiercely. Jingwan looked at her face and knew that even if she didn't believe her, she was suspicious. His Highness dotes on me and arranges the best for me. Even if I'm still young, nothing will happen to me. Luo Jingying seemed to regain her confidence when she said this. Luo Jingwan, don't play these little tricks with me. I'm just a leftover. A trace of contempt and disdain appeared on her face. Is that so? Then do the people who serve you always tell you what is good for the child? Have they ever told you what is good for you? Do they care about the child or you? If you can tell me one thing about them being considerate of you, I'll admit that I'm playing with numbers. Luo Jingying's face changed again. She seemed to be thinking about it, and her face became worse. It was clear that Jingwan was right. You, after you die, other women will bully your child, spend your money, live in your house, and sleep with your man. Of course, the last one doesn't have to wait for you to die. It will always be like this. Luo Jingwan, Luo Jingwan. Luo Jingying held her stomach and was full of hatred. What, do you not want the child now? But without the child, do you still have any value? What's more, the child of the imperial family can't be harmed even if it's the mother. Otherwise, you will be accused of harming the imperial child. How many heads do you have to bear such a crime? Luo Jingying's lips moved. She wasn't so stupid to lose the child. In her opinion, Prince Rue, who didn't have a son, cared a lot about the child. Now that she was surrounded by people arranged by him, there was no possibility that he would do anything. Although she always believed that Wang Yi really loved her, she subconsciously didn't dare to take the risk. She didn't dare to take the risk of what would happen to her if she didn't have the child. But harming the imperial child is a serious crime. This is what third sister said. Luo Jingying laughed slyly. Then, she held her stomach and screamed miserably. She kept saying that her stomach hurt and kept saying things like, third sister, don't. The servants serving her were not light. As for Jingwan and the people she brought, they were calm and composed. Before coming, Jingwan had already expected that Luo Jingying would cause trouble. Her biggest bargaining chip, now, was the child in her stomach. Jingwan felt that she had overestimated her. Luo Jingying didn't have much courage and couldn't be ruthless to herself. Luo Jingying held on tightly to the people supporting her. Wang Yi, where is Wang Yi? No matter what, this wasn't a small matter. The servants had to hurriedly inform Wang Yi and Wang Fei. How could Li Hongyuan not know that Prince Rue was alarmed? Jingwan was here. How could he ignore it? Originally, Li Hongming said that Madame Lu would deal with it. He didn't need to care. He believed that Luo Third Miss wasn't that kind of person. It's better to know who's right and who's wrong. If he was vague, there would be plenty of excuses to shirk responsibility. Luo Jingying's voice could be heard from afar. Third imperial brother. This concubine is full of energy. Prince Rue didn't look good. During this time, Luo Jingying's nature was exposed. He also saw some of her unspeakable words and deeds. He tolerated it and only sent 2 nannies to teach her the rules. However, Luo Jingying acted coquettishly and shamelessly and didn't want to learn. Now, she even pretended to be like this. Perhaps it was a mistake to choose her at that time. Princess Lu arrived first. She saw at a glance that this matter was most likely pretended. Her face couldn't help but turn a little dark. She completely ignored her warning. Li Hongming saw Luo Jingying pitifully reaching out to him, as if she was begging for a hug. If there were no outsiders, he wouldn't mind fulfilling her wish. However, with his brother by his side and outsiders present, he only felt embarrassed. Therefore, he completely ignored Luo Jingying. He glanced at Jingwan. Because of their arrival, She had already stood up. She was indifferent and calm, without the slightest bit of panic. With this kind of temperament, she was much better than Luo Jingying. He sighed in his heart, but his face didn't change at all. Looking at Luo Jingying again, he suddenly had an idea. His eyes fell on Luo Jingying's belly. If he beat her at her own game and directly got rid of this child, would he be able to exchange for a chance? It was basically confirmed that Luo Jingying had no status in the Luo family. However, Luo Jingwan was different. She was deeply loved by Madame Luo. If she got into trouble, the Luo family would be very unlikely to not care about her. Li Hongyuan watched coldly from the side. He could tell at a glance what Li Hongming was planning. In his opinion, Li Hongyuan was the one who had been playing around for a long time, treating him as if he didn't exist. Someone summoned the imperial physician. This sentence completely interrupted Li Hongming's thoughts. He turned to look at him. She's just a concubine. Why bother the imperial physician? Just let the food doctor take a look. He dispelled his previous idea. He couldn't control Luo Peishan, but provoked this living hell. The gains didn't make up for the losses. If this bastard wanted to mess with him, he had no way to get back at him. Moreover, when he had accepted Luo Jingying as his concubine, outsiders had already guessed that there was something fishy going on, but because there was no real evidence, no one dared to say anything. Now that the imperial physician had been invited to take her pulse, wouldn't everything be exposed? At that time, the Luo family's reputation would be damaged even more. However, the image he had always maintained would also be completely ruined. Third imperial brother still doesn't have an heir, and imperial mother is also anxious. When the concubine was pregnant, the female physician stayed by her side every day. The imperial physician also took her pulse every 3 days. Now, this one's background is much more noble than that one. Third imperial brother, why are you neglecting her? Li Hongming's expression didn't change. Sixth younger brother, you misunderstood. I think it's because I don't have many children. The previous child, perhaps I cared too much about it. I couldn't suppress my good fortune and couldn't save her life. Therefore, it's better for this one to be less important. It has nothing to do with this prince. This imperial physician must be invited. He must let this prince know whether the fetus is really affected or someone is deliberately playing tricks. If it's the former, then it can only be your bad luck, third imperial brother. If it's the latter, then this prince can't help but turn the fake into the real. Li Hongyuan's words were indifferent, but the meaning behind them was frightening. Li Hongming was glad that he dispelled the idea. Otherwise, the one who would suffer in the end would be him. However, Jingwan was surprised by Li Hongyuan's unreasonable tyranny. If you suffer a loss, then it's your own bad luck. If you let him suffer a loss, then he'll return it to you 10 times, 100 times over. However, Prince Rue didn't dare to say anything. Because he kept silent, even if he couldn't retaliate against him, at least there wouldn't be any more disastrous losses. Even if he had no power or influence on the surface, in reality, to some extent, he had more power than the emperor. Moreover, the emperor was absolutely not as free and unfettered as he was. The emperor would be bound by many rules and regulations, but he wouldn't. To be a Wangya, to be able to achieve the status of Jin Qinhuang, was probably unprecedented. And when you became the object of such a man's protection, it was actually quite interesting. Sixth younger brother, she's just young and delicate. She wants this prince to take a look at her. Looking at her appearance, it doesn't seem like she's affected by the fetus. Why should sixth younger brother care about this little trick of the inner residence? Let's go, let's continue drinking. Third older brother recently got some good stuff. Let's open sixth younger brother's eyes. What was this called? Spending money to avoid disaster. Looking at Li Hongyuan's attitude, it was clear that he was accustomed to it. Jingwan also understood that Li Hongyuan's real purpose in having her come was purely to extort Prince Rue's things. The other things were just incidental. It didn't matter whether they could be achieved or not. Wangya, may this subject's daughter take her leave first? Speaking of this, because I was born a day earlier than fourth younger sister, I was considered to be a head above fourth younger sister. Fourth younger sister's relationship with this subject's daughter hasn't been harmonious since childhood. She is easily agitated when she sees this subject's daughter. Now that her body is heavy, it's not good for everyone. Moreover, before I left, grandfather and grandmother didn't agree with this subject's daughter coming. In the future, if there's no need to see her. Jingwan seemed to be tactful, but the meaning she wanted to express was very clear. Li Hongming was clearly furious, but he still maintained a perfect smile on his face. Not to mention that Li Hongyuan was present. He couldn't flare up. Even if it was just Jingwan, he still needed to maintain his poise. Third Miss Luo is right. There's no need to force people who don't get along. Wang Ye, I feel that third Miss Luo is quite congenial. In the future, we will be sisters-in-law. I wonder if I can occasionally invite third Miss Luo to our mansion for a chat? Princess Lu said in a soft voice. I can't make the decision. It depends on whether third Miss Luo is willing. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653217. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile edition website, mbicken.com. Chapter 198. I can't make the decision. It depends on whether Miss Luo is willing or not. Prince Rue smiled warmly. Compared with his gloominess before, he was probably really happy now. He looked at Princess Lu with a much softer look. What was a good wife? Princess Lu was a good wife. She was anxious for Prince Rue and thought for him. When a man couldn't do anything, he relied on wife diplomacy. As long as there was contact, he didn't have to worry about the relationship. Not to mention other things, just based on this point alone, even 10 Luo Jingyings would not be able to catch up. Originally, she had her own advantages, but unfortunately, she did not have a good relationship with Jingwan and the Luo family. Moreover, it seemed that her IQ was not online. She had already warned her, but she still messed things up. Li Hongming obviously wouldn't fall in love with any woman. In his eyes, there were only value and no value. Could Luo Jingying's value be compared with Princess Lu's? It was impossible before today, and it was even more impossible after today. After Jingwan made it clear that the Luo family didn't care about Luo Jingying, her value was probably only to give birth to a baby. During the pregnancy, she might get some benefits. The so-called benefits came from Princess Lu's care for the baby. It was difficult for her to see Li Hongming again. After giving birth to the baby, Luo Jingying's fate was definitely worrying. Princess Consort's invitation. This subject's daughter does not dare to refuse. The outside of the palace is filled with beautiful mountains, rivers, and sceneries. Occasionally, we can go for a swim or sit down to eat some tea. It would be a beautiful thing. Jingwan smiled as she spoke. It was obvious that Jingwan had secretly changed the concept. Entering Prince Rue's territory and sightseeing outside were two different things. Outside, they could coincidentally meet many people. Instead of two people traveling together, it became many people traveling together. Even if he understood Jingwan's meaning, he could only feel helpless. Since Jingwan was about to leave, Li Hongyuan naturally wouldn't stay. He wasn't interested in playing a brotherly drama. As for drinking, he had good wine. Li Hongming couldn't compare with him. However, when Li Hongyuan was about to leave, Li Hongming was a little surprised. If he came together because he happened to be in the Luo family, although it was unbelievable, it was not unacceptable. They would leave together. Li Hongming glanced at Jingwan and Li Hongyuan with a little curiosity. After the marriage was confirmed, his sixth brother showed some unusual care for the third Miss Luo. This kind of care seemed to go beyond a certain category. Since Li Hongyuan wanted to leave, naturally, no one could stop him. And just at this time, noble consort Su sent someone over. She said that she heard that the third Miss Luo was here and wanted to visit her. Jingwan naturally didn't have the right to refuse noble consort Su's invitation, and there was also no need to refuse. However, Jingwan looked at Li Honyuan. Perhaps because there was someone he didn't want to do. His eyes weren't gentle and affectionate, but indifferent and familiar. There was even a trace of gloominess and hostility. This was really a contradictory and complicated person. However, when he was with her, he seemed to be very pure. In his pure eyes, there was only her. Li Honyuan nodded imperceptibly. Then, Jingwan went to see noble consort Su without worry. Compared to the last time they met, there was a clear change in their identities. At that time, it was just a normal thing for an official's daughter to be summoned by an imperial concubine. Now, Jingwan was her future daughter-in-law. It was said that mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were natural enemies. What's more, it was said that Prince Jin and noble consort Su had a deep mother-son relationship. With Duchess Ding as an example, Jingwan was actually a little nervous. When a noble consort went crazy, it was much more terrifying than Duchess Ding. As they left, Prince Rue and his wife also sent them off. According to Princess Lu's intention, they were going to pay respects to noble consort Su. Obviously, it was to cheer Jingwan up. Although the essential purpose wasn't for Jingwan, Jingwan still accepted it. After all, this was the first time meeting. With one more person, she would feel more at ease. Then, the acting Luo Jingying was forgotten in place. She was in a daze. She didn't know if it was because she hadn't come back to her senses yet or because the blow was too big. However, the person who served her was obviously irreverent. She changed the rudder according to the wind. She didn't want a Li Hongyuan, and Li Hongming also went to noble consort Su with the same banner as Princess Lu. When noble consort Su saw the four people appear together, she was stunned at first, but then she laughed. After they greeted each other, she hurriedly called Jingwan to her. When she held her affectionately, she felt the smooth touch of her hand and suddenly thought of something. White as snow, white as snow. She looked at Li Honyuan with some ridicule. Li Honyuan was very thick-skinned. His face didn't blush, and his heart didn't beat fast. He was calm, as if he didn't understand what noble consort Su was saying at all. Jingwan and Princess Lu were also a little confused. However, Li Hongming quickly understood noble consort Su's meaning. He quickly glanced at Jingwan with a look of self-understanding in his eyes. He quickly looked away and smiled without saying anything. Whether it was noble consort Su or Li Hongming, they probably thought that Jingwan was Li Hongyuan's type. Okay, this person has been sent here. You can do whatever you want. Noble consort Su waved at her two sons with some disdain, indicating that they should get out of here quickly and not be an eyesore. Mother, you don't want your sons anymore after you have a daughter-in-law? Li Honyuan said in a low voice, coquettishly. Is she still your daughter-in-law? You are shameless, but Miss Luo is. Get out of here, get out of here. Don't pretend in front of me. Noble consort Su scolded with a smile. Li Honyuan thought to himself, I have done what I should and shouldn't do. How can she still be someone else's daughter-in-law? The two brothers were driven away by noble consort Su just like that. Noble consort Su looked at Jingwan again and found that she seemed to be a little shy. She smiled gently. She didn't know if it was because of the makeup, but the corners of noble consort Su's eyes were not so obvious. Naturally, she lost some of her sharpness and looked more gentle. Originally, she was graceful and noble, so it was not easy to get close to her. However, because of this gentleness, she had a good impression of her. It was like you thought that the other party was a flower on a high mountain, but in fact, the other party was especially fond of you. You couldn't help but feel flattered and happy. If it was just an ordinary girl, she would probably think that noble consort Su was a very easy person to get along with. Just think about it. She had been favored in the harem for decades. She could compete with the empress in the harem. Her son was one of the most powerful competitors for the throne. How could such a woman be easy to deal with? The atmosphere created by noble consort Su didn't make Jingwan relax. Instead, it made her more vigilant. When she spoke, she paid special attention to it. It could be said that it was watertight. And Princess Lu quietly accompanied them. Seeing that Jingwan and noble consort Su were competing, one was shy and the other was gentle. Princess Lu sighed secretly in the letter. This sister-in-law was also amazing. After being noble consort Su's daughter-in-law for so many years, she knew very well how powerful noble consort Su was. There were only a few girls who could deal with her freely. No, thinking back, it should be said that Jingwan was the first one she had seen. Thinking back, it was really not worth mentioning. After the two brothers left, Li Hongming wanted to go to Lu Qingdi to make a good impression, but Li Hongyuan was not interested. Knowing what kind of character he was, Li Hongming didn't care about him. He just teased him for a while and left. Li Hongyuan looked at the direction of noble consort Su's courtyard with a rather deep look. He knew that Jingwan could deal with it, but he also knew that she wouldn't like the atmosphere. He summoned an E and whispered something. Then he walked around casually and returned to his courtyard. Noble consort Su was talking with Jingwan excitedly when a servant came to report that great elder princess sent someone to invite third Miss Luo to enjoy the flowers. Noble consort Su was slightly stunned. At that moment, the smile in her eyes obviously faded away. In the blink of an eye, she returned to normal. She patted Jingwan's hand and said, "Good girl, you can go now. Don't let your foster mother wait for a long time." Jingwan hesitated for a moment and then bowed to leave. After Jingwan left, noble consort Su became a little indifferent. This girl is good enough for sixth brother, but it's a pity. Princess Lu was slightly confused, but she didn't ask because it was not necessary. She's a good helper. Yuan doesn't need her. Princess Lu understood. She lowered her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes. She wanted to give her son the best, but it was a pity. What happened in your courtyard? The Luo family wouldn't come to them for no reason. I'm about to tell you. Princess Lu told noble consort Su about the Luo Jingying in detail. This kind of thing was known to others, but there was no need to hide it from noble consort Su. When Li Hongming married a Luo Jingying, noble consort Su also felt that there was something fishy. However, she knew that her son didn't take the initiative to mention it, so it shouldn't be a big deal, so she didn't ask. In fact, it was not a big deal that he just slept with a girl who was somewhat rich and powerful. Her character and brain are not good, but her luck is good. Since she is pregnant, just take good care of her. She can't play a role in the Luo family's affairs, so don't worry about it. It's her good fortune to be alive, and it's her fate if she can't be alive. Noble consort Su said and paused. If she is really good at giving birth, it's not bad to keep her and give birth to a few more children. That was to be treated as a pure fertility tool. Princess Lu forced a smile. Although she had seen everything clearly, she still felt bitter in her heart. Mother, you're right. You are still young, and your body is fine. Work hard with Ming, and try to give birth to a legitimate son. Although when you take the position, most of the heirs won't be legitimate sons, I still think highly of you. Princess Lu's eyes reddened. She didn't know if she was really touched or something else. Thank you, Mother. Well, you can go back. Deal with the concubine in the backyard. If you don't like her, you don't have to keep her. When the time comes, just keep the child and go to the mother. https://www.yanguwaiwo.com/11/11807/6653219. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.yanguwaiwo.com, Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website, yanguwaiwo.com. Chapter 199. You're a virtuous director. Imperial consort Su paused. Even if you can't give birth to a legitimate son, raising one in the future will be the same. You know what Ming Er's personality is like. As long as you do what you need to do, then no one will take away what belongs to you. Her voice was gentle, but the meaning behind her words made people shiver uncontrollably. Princess Lu suppressed the coldness in her heart. No matter what Imperial Consort Su said, she responded respectfully. Of course, she knew Li Hongming's temperament. If she did her job well, what was hers would be hers. These words could be used to coax her a few years ago. Li Hongming didn't seem to be interested in beauty, and he respected his first wife. That was because he needed a good reputation, and that was because she was still useful now. If one day he ascended to that supreme position, Princess Lu was almost certain what would happen. As the saying goes, the more suppressed it was, the more serious it would be when it broke out. What's more, now there was an incomparably carefree and unscrupulous Prince Jean as a comparison. Don't look at how all the princes were deadpan and sanctimonious. To say that they weren't envious and jealous of Jean Qinhuang, it was almost impossible to find them. These people should also include the other children of the imperial clan. Most likely, not a single one of them wasn't thinking, why could he be so unscrupulous? But they couldn't. When there were no more restrictions, it would probably become even worse. It was fine if he didn't meet the woman he liked. Then, if she didn't make a mistake, she probably wouldn't lose the position of empress. If he met the person he liked, the cold palace might be the best place for her. Princess Lu saw all of this clearly. Her feelings for Li Hongming had long been wiped clean. Li Hongming maintained a good image on the surface, and she also played the role of a good wife and mother. She couldn't quit because of resentment. After all, if she couldn't be a princess, then she was not far from death. Moreover, it wasn't as simple as her life and death. She had 2 daughters. If they had a stepmother, she couldn't imagine what would happen to them. Even if she didn't care about the position of empress, she couldn't imagine that the one who would ascend the throne in the future wouldn't be Li Hongyuan. Because if that happened, her entire family would be destroyed. As the saying goes, one's glory is shared, and one's loss is shared. No matter how bad that man was, she had to help him. Noble consort Su sent Princess Lu away and sat there thinking. She also found that her youngest son cared about the 3rd young lady of the Luo family very much. But it didn't matter. Whether he really liked her or for other reasons, she wouldn't do the same thing as Duchess Ding. Maybe she would feel a little sad, but she was really scared by her son's reputation of bringing bad luck to his wife. Now they finally had a girl. Master Liaochen said that they were a match made in heaven, and nothing had happened to them until now. Even if she was dissatisfied, she would never show it. Otherwise, if others were inferior, the emperor would be dissatisfied with her. In actuality, she was quite glad that this girl had been given to her son, and not to Li Hongyi to be his step-consort. If Madame Lu could sense it, then noble consort Su, as the person involved, could also sense it. This girl wasn't a simple person. She was well aware of the power of pillow talk. If this talk was unorthodox, then it would be good to use it on the opponent. However, this girl didn't seem like someone who would do evil, so it would only have a positive effect. In addition, this girl had a powerful maternal family. It was good for the person who married her, but bad for the person who married her. Although it was a pity that she couldn't be used, it was better to let her be a useless chess piece than to let others have her. Li Hongyuan's leisure didn't last for 4 hours before Emperor Lu Qingdi summoned him. Li Hongyuan was very annoyed by his old man's summons, but because he had nothing to do, he didn't give his old man a hard time. At this time, Emperor Lu Qingdi had already finished dealing with political affairs, and Prince Rui and the Gong Prince were also present. It was as if the father and son were chatting with Lele. After Li Hongyuan paid his respects, they didn't say anything and just picked up the cup of tea. Who was Li Hongyuan? At the beginning, perhaps he didn't understand the meaning of Emperor Lu Qingdi's words, but Emperor Lu Qingdi made it so obvious. If he still didn't understand, then he would have lived in vain. However, even so, he didn't intend to cooperate well. With a cold face, he looked at Emperor Lu Qingdi, as if to say, "Are you idle?" Emperor Lu Qingdi didn't get a response, and Li Hongyuan's gaze made his balls hurt. He cursed in his heart, "You unfilial son." However, Emperor Lu Qingdi couldn't bring himself to directly ask for it. The others also looked at the confrontation between the father and son, not daring to say a word. It must be said that every time they saw Emperor Lu Chengdi suffer in the hands of Li Hongyuan, as the other sons, they were envious and jealous. But in fact, they were secretly happy. It couldn't be helped, who told them to often be trained like dogs by Emperor Lu Chengdi. So, when they saw him sulking, their hearts secretly rubbed, feeling a great sense of relief. Get lost. Seeing Li Hongyuan was like a wooden stake. Emperor Lu Chengdi was so angry that he smashed the cup again. Li Hongyuan looked at the broken cup that was still 2 steps away from his feet. This old man was really afraid of hurting him, smashing things farther and farther away. Speaking of which, with your attitude, it would be strange if you didn't raise an unfilial son. However, as the saying goes, the heavens cannot be offended. Li Hongyuan only angered him on ordinary trivial matters. If he really became lawless, then no matter how much affection he had, it would be worn away. Li Hongyuan clicked his tongue, when Mu Gonggong, who was outside, heard his master's call, he immediately came in and presented a small box. Li Hongyuan took it and casually threw it to Emperor Li's personal attendant. This was originally prepared for Fu Huang, but I didn't think that Fu Huang would be so impatient. Akan will retire. Turning around, he leisurely left. Emperor Lu Chengdi was so angry that he almost fell backwards, cursing vile spawn, vile spawn. It must be said that the guards outside were already familiar with these words. Their eyelids didn't even move. Emperor Li's personal attendant carefully held the small box. Just now, he almost didn't catch it, and it really fell to the ground. Perhaps, not long after, his head would fall to the ground. He waited until Emperor Lu Chengdi almost vented his anger before he hesitated whether to present it or not. Stupid slave. Still not bringing it over. Emperor Lu roared. Don't look at how Prince Jin was arrogant in front of Emperor Lu. Other people would still tremble in the face of his anger. Emperor Lu Chengdi held the box and subconsciously wanted to throw it away, but in the end, he couldn't bear to and put it down. Prince Jin personally picked the tea. Before this official made the tea, he instructed this official to make sure it was done well. After tasting it, he left more than half of it to be presented to His Majesty. If it wasn't for Luo Peishan's words not long ago, how could Emperor Lu do this kind of shameful thing? But there was no other way. As the saying goes, only things that people couldn't ask for would make people think of them and feel that they were precious. His other sons would give him some good things from time to show filial piety, but this evil creature, other than longevity, he never gave him anything. Even if it was longevity, the things that were sent were basically his rewards. Even if it was just a simple change, he wasn't willing. Being so perfunctory, so careless, Emperor Li's heart was very stifled. But unfortunately, he didn't treat imperial concubine Su like this. Food, clothing, all kinds of things, imperial concubine Su could receive them. Although it wasn't a lot, it couldn't resist that kind of intention. Every time, imperial concubine Su liked it very much. Imperial concubine Su also very unkindly went to Emperor Lu to show off, making Emperor Lu more and more depressed. It was fine if it was just imperial concubine Su, but there was also Princess Min Xiang. Although the number of times was much less than imperial concubine Su, it was still far better than someone who didn't have anything. Therefore, if Princess Min Xiang had any opinions about Li Hongyuan, Emperor Lu would definitely be the first to show a black face. Your 6th imperial brother is so good to you, but you actually don't know what's good for you. Therefore, good and bad were all judged by comparison, but Emperor Lu just didn't compare this son with the other sons. Alright, the more those sons did, the more it meant that they had ulterior motives. It wasn't easy for his son to think of giving him something, and it was even personally picked by him. How could he not be happy? Naturally, after Li Hongyuan didn't present it to him for a long time, he couldn't help but take the initiative to ask. The most infuriating thing was that this vile spawn still deliberately angered him in the end. However, after his anger subsided, Emperor Lu held the box and chuckled. He called over the palace, maid who was the best at making tea, and had everything moved to the study, boiling water and making tea right under his nose. Then he personally took out a small portion. That small amount seemed to be able to clearly see how many there were at a glance. Seeing him treasuring it so much, the palace maid's hands trembled. It had to be said that, as the emperor, what kind of good tea in the world hadn't he drunk before? Sometimes, palace maids like them would be able to bask in some of his glory. But now, the palace maid felt that if she dared to spill even one, he would Emperor Lu Qingdi stared straight at it. Just as he mixed the tea, his nose twitched, as if the room was already filled with the fragrance of tea. His two sons watched from the side, having the urge to cover their eyes. Their father's current appearance was really a bit unbearable to look at. Their hearts were filled with resentment and unwillingness, but more than that, they were helpless. They worked hard and suffered untold hardships, but they might not be able to get a smile from him. In the end, they were often suspected of having ulterior motives. But that person, he was relaxed. Perhaps, even if he sent a blade of grass, it would be regarded as the most peculiar and rare grass by their imperial father. Even if it wasn't a treasure, it was still a treasure. The Gong Prince's face was already a bit embarrassed, but Prince Rui was as usual, even jokingly asking Emperor Lu Qingdi for a sip of tea. "Can you be short of a sip of tea?" As expected, he was rejected, but his expression didn't change. Emperor Lu Qingdi impatiently tasted the tea. Obviously, it wasn't steeped yet, it was still boiling hot, but he inelegantly blew on it and drank a little bit. That expression of enjoyment was like tasting the finest nectar. Prince Rui's expression was also a bit difficult to maintain. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653222. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.beacon.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website, mbeacon.com. Chapter 200. When Lu Qingdi finally finished his cup of tea, Prince Rui and Prince Gong finally asked to be excused. Standing here was simply suffering, so out of sight, out of mind. Perhaps they were provoked by Lu Qingdi, but after the two left, they didn't even bother to maintain the brotherly respect on the surface. They each returned to their own homes, each looking for their own mother. The resentment in Li Hongming's heart had reached a critical point. If he didn't vent it out, he might really do something unexpected. When he saw Imperial Consort Su, he directly kicked out all the servants, even forgetting basic etiquette and rules, venting his anger on Imperial Consort Su. The only place where he could reveal his pure emotions was Imperial Consort Su. Imperial Consort Su was calm and composed, leisurely drinking tea. When Li Hongming finally calmed down, she spoke with a bit of apology. "Are you done?" Mufei, Aken was rude. Aken asks Mufei for forgiveness. Imperial Consort Su had always been strict with Prince Rui, but when he was in a bad mood, she was a gentle and loving mother. It's nothing more than your sixth brother and your imperial father's filial piety that made you unhappy. You're a big man, someone who wants to ascend the throne, yet you're acting like a spoiled girl. What's wrong with you? Li Hongming's face was a bit ashen. Mufei, don't confuse the main point every time. Imperial Consort Su glanced at him faintly. This consort told you a long time ago that your imperial father won't pass the throne to your sixth brother. How many times has this consort told you not to take your sixth brother's favor to heart? Why don't you listen and insist on pestering him? Mufei wants Aken to feel at ease, or at least explain things clearly to Aken. You always want Aken to feel at ease, but in fact, Aken only sees Imperial Father as a son. We're nothing. Imperial Consort Su was silent for a moment, quietly looking at Li Hongming. If you have any trust in this consort, you shouldn't say such things. Li Hongming's lips squirmed. Mufei, Aken just feels terrified every time I see that scene. Your sixth brother is a devil. Even if the throne is passed to a child who is crying piteously for food, it won't be him. You can rest assured now. She had kept this secret for so many years and had repeatedly brushed off Li Hongming. However, at this moment, she easily revealed the truth. Li Hongming's face was full of shock. This, Back then, I personally saw the imperial noble consort die. I personally saw your imperial father cut open her belly. When your sixth brother was born, he didn't have the right to inherit the throne. As for the other things, no matter how much he obtained, it was only right. A large part of the reason why Ben Gong was able to obtain your imperial father's trust for so many years was because of the imperial noble consort and your sixth brother. As for the imperial noble consort's death, Ben Gong wants Ming, when you ascend the throne, don't bother with your sixth brother. At that time, you will be the ruler, and he will be the subject. He won't cause trouble for you anymore. As for the matters of these years, compared to your other brothers, you didn't suffer any actual losses. Li Hongming was silent for a moment before he gradually digested Imperial Consort Su's words. Even a sixth brother is a devil, it's naturally inauspicious. Imperial Father isn't afraid. Your Imperial Father is the true Son of Heaven and will naturally be protected by the heavens. Your sixth brother has no power or influence. He's just an idle prince who can't affect the fate of the country. Furthermore, the Imperial Noble Consort is Imperial Father's favorite. Your sixth brother is the only thing she left behind, whether it's a person or an object. Furthermore, Imperial Consort Su paused. The Imperial Noble Consort was personally killed by your Imperial Father. In summary, if Yuan was born before her death, you really wouldn't have a share of this country. You'd better be sensible. The news that Imperial Consort Su threw out one after another made Li Hongming a little confused. Imperial Father killed the Imperial Noble Consort. Regarding this, you don't need to know the specifics. It won't do you any good. In the future, you just need to do your job well. You know your sixth brother's temper. If there's nothing, don't provoke him. As for the rest, as long as your Imperial Father isn't completely muddle-headed and sticks to his bottom line, no matter what he does to your sixth brother, you just need to keep silent. Li Hongming took 2 deep breaths. Although he wasn't afraid of people like the devils, it wasn't good to provoke Li Hongyuan. In the future, he would naturally stay far away from them. Imperial Mother, Imperial Father is so good to sixth brother. Well, sixth brother, it doesn't matter if he will or won't. Ambition is linked to the power in one's hands. Your sixth brother is living unscrupulously. Do you think he can't see clearly? The limitless sacred favor of the Emperor could easily cause one to lose their way. If one couldn't see clearly, they wouldn't be who they were today. After all, having the favor and not having the authority was enough to drive a person completely crazy. Ming, in terms of intelligence, none of your brothers can compare to him. Moreover, Li Hongming didn't know what Imperial Consort Su's unfinished words were. However, his Imperial Mother had always been gentle and dignified. Other emotions might be shown when she was fighting with the concubines, but even then it was mostly an act. Thus, it was really hard to detect when her true emotions were. However, at this moment, his complexion was really not good. He knew that it was just like how Imperial Father killed the Imperial Noble Consort. He shouldn't ask about the specifics. You should be able to feel at ease now. Imperial Mother, Aken is ashamed. Li Hongming lowered his head with a bitter expression. Just don't be so suspicious. If there's nothing else, then go back. Imperial Mother is tired. Imperial Mother, rest well. Aken will take his leave. The only people who knew about what happened today were me and your father. Don't let a fourth person hear about it. If any rumors were to spread, it would definitely anger your father. After so many years, he has always felt guilty, but he is also deceiving himself, as if he has forgotten what he really did. If his wounds are opened again, the consequences are not something we can bear. Imperial Mother, don't worry. Aken knows the severity of the matter. Go. Li Hongming's mood suddenly brightened up like a June day. All along, the opponent he was most afraid of was not Prince Kong, but Li Hongyuan. Because imperial power was supreme, no matter how much power you had, you couldn't resist an imperial edict. Even if you could kill the emperor and usurp the throne, you would still be a traitor. You would be criticized by later generations if you didn't have a proper title. Now, what he was worried about had never existed. Except for Li Hongyuan. who could compete with him in terms of the degree of favor. In addition, he had power in his hands. Li Hongming's smile was obvious. He almost looked up to the sky and laughed. Devil, these two words slipped from the tip of his tongue again and again. Ignoring Li Hongyuan's wanton arrogance, he became an inauspicious person in Li Hongming's eyes. A pitiful worm. Li Hongyuan didn't know Li Hongming's thoughts. If he knew, he would probably just sneer. A pitiful worm? What kind of expression would he have when he was stepped on by a pitiful worm like him in the future? For the sake of a so-called good reputation, he was timid. This thing was not even a fart in Li Hongyuan's eyes. Not to mention usurping the throne, even if the world was plunged into misery and suffering, he wouldn't bat an eyelid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a notorious tyrant in his previous life. The surrounding countries all shrank their heads and acted like cowards. Prince Rui returned to his own courtyard in a good mood. However, as soon as he entered the door, he was informed that concubine Ying had been making a racket and wanted to see him. To Li Hongming, Lu Jingying had lost her value. However, she still had a child in her belly. Although he didn't really care whether he had a son or not, having a child would still be more beneficial to him. At least no one would hold onto this point and not let it go. It wasn't like he was ascending the throne when he was still young. For adult princes like him, having an heir was also an important factor in whether or not they could ascend the throne. This was because the family valued inheritance, and the emperor was even more so. Li Hongming thought about it and decided to go see her. At least, he wanted her to know her place. If she kept making a ruckus, it would be annoying. Lu Jingying finally saw Li Hongming. Tears streamed down her face. She was very pitiful. Your Highness. She even forgot the rules and threw herself into his arms, sobbing. Before, Li Hongming might have been patient enough to coax her. Now, his face was full of impatience. Because he felt the clothes on his chest were wet, he showed an extremely disgusted expression. You're all dead. Why aren't you pulling her away from this prince? Feeling Li Hongming's cold air, before the servant girls could do anything, his personal attendant had already stepped forward and pulled Lu Jingying away from Li Hongming's body. Perhaps to prevent her from not letting go of his master, the personal attendant secretly used underhanded means to break her fingers. Lu Jingying cried out in pain. She felt that her fingers were about to break. Lu Jingying was probably used to being arrogant recently. She didn't even think before she threw a slap. Lowly servant, you have big guts. Ever since he became Prince Rui's personal attendant, there were a lot of people who tried to curry favor with him. When Wang Fei spoke to him, she would always have a somewhat amiable expression. Other than when his own master lost his temper, it was probably only when he was kicked by Prince Jin. That living king of hell, no one could afford to offend him. Even if he was kicked, it would be in vain. Don't expect anyone to make a decision for him. But now, a little concubine slapped him? Resentment flashed through her eyes. With a bit of grievance, she quietly retreated behind Prince Rui. When you have value, you're a treasure. When you have no value, you're just a blade of grass. Li Hongming's face immediately darkened. He was a man who preferred gentle and chaste women. He didn't mind the occasional slow taste, but once he was tired, no matter what he did, it would be wrong. With a backhand slap, Lu Jingying was directly knocked to the ground. Lu Jingying covered her face. There were still traces of blood at the corner of her mouth. She didn't dare to look at Li Hongming. The man standing in front of her, he wasn't her husband, right? Clearly, a few days ago, he was still hugging her and whispering sweet nothings into her ear. Wang Ye, you hit me? Daring to address Wang Ye as you and I, concubine Ying, please pay attention to your status. The personal attendant behind Prince Rui reminded. Li Hongming couldn't see it, but Lu Jingying could clearly see the disdain and malice in his eyes. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/6653223. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com mobile version, reading website, ambicken.com. Chapter 201. Luo Jingying was completely stunned at this moment. Her mind went blank for a long time. She couldn't return to her senses and didn't get up. The servants also looked at her coldly. Not only did they not go forward to help her, they even retreated a little. Everyone could see that concubine Ing had fallen out of favor. No matter if it was the servants who were sent to serve her early on or when she showed signs of pregnancy, they couldn't stand her temper. When the prince was around, she was obedient and charming. When the prince wasn't around, she was arrogant and domineering and didn't put anyone in her eyes. She was also unusually harsh to the people around her. She was generous when rewarding people, giving out gold and silver jewelry as if they didn't cost money. Unfortunately, she only had 2 or 3 people. Obviously, these people only had the sweetest mouths and were the best at flattering her. As the saying goes, don't worry about scarcity, but worry about inequality. A few people were rich, while many people were poor. How could she win people's hearts if she relied on her preferences? The sharp pain in her stomach made Luo Jingying come back to her senses. She hugged her stomach and cried out in pain, but still no one bowed to her. She had played tricks many times. When she was favored, they were still willing to surround her. But now However, seeing that her complexion was indeed not right, the 2 mamas looked at each other. Hurry and help Shijiang up. As they spoke, they stepped forward to take her pulse. This time, they were shocked. Hurry and call the manor doctor. This time, the servants were really a little panicked. Even if concubine Ing was no longer favored, she was still pregnant. Under the circumstances where the prince didn't have an heir, this child was very precious. It was fine to step on a concubine who had fallen out of favor, but stepping on a concubine who was pregnant and out of favor was a big problem. If something happened to the child, they would definitely be the ones to suffer. Luo Jingying was helped up and sent back to the room to be placed on the bed. Then, she found that there were bloodstains on her dress. Seeing this situation, everyone's heart jumped and they hurriedly notified the servants. The food doctor came quickly, followed by Princess Lu. Previously, Luo Jingying caused trouble, so the food doctor found that there was a slight change in the baby's energy, but it was not a big problem. How did you serve her? Everything was fine before. Princess Lu was very angry because she gave birth to the only 2 children in Prince Rui's mansion. Because of this, there were many rumors outside. They all said that she was playing tricks. Especially after the death of those concubines, she also hoped that Prince Rui's mansion could have more children, regardless of gender. Now, because of the special situation, it would take at least half a month before it could be announced to the public. Even the other 2 concubines in this courtyard didn't know, so naturally, they couldn't do anything with great fanfare. What happened? Hurry up and tell this princess. They couldn't bear the title of the main culprit, so they hurriedly explained the matter. Princess Lu was silent. When Prince Rui arrived, Princess Lu hesitated for a moment. Your Highness, concubine Ying's health is very heavy now. Why don't we deal with it after she gives birth? Prince Rui furrowed his brows. Clearly, he knew that it was his fault for slapping the child just now. It was one thing to be annoyed by Luo Jingying, but the child was indeed his, and he still went to the bedroom. At the moment, Luo Jingying's face was pale, and she was in a coma. She was moaning in a low voice, obviously enduring the pain. Perhaps because she sensed something, she opened her eyes. The moment she saw Prince Rui, she felt indescribably wronged. Tears welled up in her eyes. Your Highness. In the end, she wasn't stupid enough to argue with Li Hongming at this time. Li Hongming sat down by the bed. When Luo Jingying reached out to hold his hand, he didn't shake it off. However, as Luo Jingying whined and complained about how abominable her 3rd sister was, she accused Li Hongming of not helping her and even hitting her for a servant, etc. Li Hongming showed impatience. If I knew you were so stupid, I wouldn't have wasted time on you. Until now, she still couldn't see her situation clearly. Her mind was only filled with love and affection. Her family was such a powerful backer, but she made a mess of it. Now he finally understood why Luo Peishan found an excuse to not let him directly take her as a concubine. It was obvious that he threw her to him as an abandoned person. If his status was high, it would be bad. Seeing him leave heartlessly again, Luo Jingying's hand was raised in the air as if she was struck by lightning. When Li Hongming was about to turn around the screen, she suddenly stood up and wanted to chase after him. Her current situation didn't allow her to run around. Naturally, she was pushed back by her nanny, who comforted her gently and asked her to put the child first. Prince Rui just said a few words to Princess Lu. Princess Lu squatted. "See you off, Your Highness." Even though she already knew what kind of person this man was, she couldn't help but feel cold in her heart. She looked at the bedroom again. After all, she was still a little girl who didn't know anything. She was naive and ignorant. Princess Lu stood for a while and then went in. Yesterday, she was arrogant in front of her with a face full of arrogance. Now, she was like a withered flower. Maybe she was still worried about the child, so she didn't make trouble. Princess Lu waved the servants away and sat down by the bed. When she was in the Luo family, Jingwan was her #1 enemy. In Prince Rui's mansion, Princess Lu was her #1 enemy. With hatred and resentment in her eyes, she said, "Princess, are you very proud of me now?" Her words were sharp. Sure enough, besides love, there was also resentment that could cheer a person up. Princess Lu didn't get angry. She deliberately lowered her voice and murmured, "The most ruthless royal family is the royal family. Men in the royal family only have interests and power in their eyes. You are the granddaughter of the Minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs, which is your greatest value. You tore up all the cards. If you could get along well with the Luo family and make the Luo family think for you, he would probably not be stingy with his sweet words to coax you. Now that she was like this, she should put away her little temper and take care of the fetus. Even if she had no value, at least she would have a child." What the prince hated the most was the women in the inner courtyard making trouble. The prince's attitude is so obvious. Don't tell me that you still have fantasies about him. Princess, you are really good at instigating. Princess Lu looked at her quietly. It was obvious that she had believed most of it, but she still refused to admit it. Her body was trembling because of fear, but she was still so cowardly. How long could she live like this? Don't get excited. You still have a child. The child is your life-saving charm now. If you lose the child, after you entered Prince Rui's mansion, you offended a lot of people. Without the prince's support, you should know the situation you are facing. Don't tell me that you don't even know this. With the child, those people won't dare to go too far, and you won't be punished too much. Be careful. Don't be so naive. That's all I have to say." Princess Lu stood up. Luo Jingying suddenly grabbed her and asked, "Why?" They were enemies. Why would she be so kind to tell her these things? Why? Princess Lu didn't know why. Maybe it was because Luo Jingying reminded her of someone she once knew. She did everything for a man. She was like a moth darting into a flame. She could imagine her tragic end. Or maybe she thought that she still had a conscience and pretended to be a good person. Princess Lu pushed her hand away and said, "It seems that you won't give up so easily. The Luo family is your only chance to turn the tables. If you can ask your grandfather to help the prince will favor you more than before." In fact, what Princess Lu said was true. In just one day, she fell from the clouds to the mud. No one would be willing to accept it. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. He said that he liked her. Why was he so fickle? Or was he just lying to her? Was it really because of the Luo family? Luo Jingying was furious and resentful. However, the pain in her abdomen made her come back to her senses. She flattered the powerful and stepped on the weak. Therefore, nothing could happen to the child. Absolutely nothing. Come on, bring the medicine. Bring the medicine. Princess Lu walked out of Luo Jingying's yard. She paused for a moment and turned to Li Hongming's study. Li Hongming was practicing calligraphy. Princess Lu knew Li Hongming's mood very well because they had been married for many years. Although he was upset today, he was in a good mood, especially after he came back from outside. Greetings to the prince. Princess Lu, you are here. Li Hongming put down his brush and reached out his hand to her. Princess Lu took the opportunity to hold his hand and snuggled into his arms. She looked at the calligraphy on the table. It seemed that he was in a good mood. Without guessing why, she just smiled and said, "Your handwriting is getting better and better, Your Highness." Li Hongming also chuckled. This was rare for him in his own territory. "Is there anything wrong? Concubine Ing will be fine. Don't worry, Your Highness. Princess Lu, you can deal with these trivial matters. I believe in you," Li Hongming said casually. After all, she has just been married. She is arrogant and willful. She will gradually become better. Please be more tolerant of her. Princess Lu, you are so kind, Li Hongming said ambiguously. Princess Lu, and I should have a son. As he said this, he directly carried Princess Lu and walked to the inner room of the study. Princess Lu exclaimed in a small voice. Then she pouted coquettishly, which made Li Hongming laugh. Princess Lu was once again sure that her prince was in a good mood. He would not do this kind of thing, usually. Great Elder Princess invited Jingwan to stay until the evening. Jingwan was really in line with her fantasy of a daughter. Her biological daughter could never reach the height of Jingwan. Therefore, she was very good to Jingwan. She even asked her youngest daughter, Wangzhu Yuyao, to learn more from Jingwan. Jingwan blushed with shame. She didn't know how an ignorant and incompetent person like her had become someone else's child. Fortunately, there was a large age gap between her and Wangzhu Yuyao. Wangzhu Yuyao wasn't a sensitive and naive child, and she really liked her. Otherwise, if she heard her mother say such things, her heart might become twisted and dark. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653225. HTML. Click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile version website, ambicken.com. Chapter 202. As expected, when Jingwan left Great Elder Princess's courtyard, she took away a lot of good things. However, it was impossible to refuse these things because Great Elder Princess would not take them back just because she said no. Every time she did this, she was ignored and mercilessly driven away by Great Elder Princess, and this time was no exception. But just now, Jingwan pulled Wangzhu Yuyao and said with a smile, "Yuyao, my foster mother gave me all the good things, and you have no dowry in the future. So, little girl, quickly stop your mother." Wangzhu Yuyao smiled innocently. "It doesn't matter. I have no dowry. Sister, you can prepare a dowry for me in the future. My sixth cousin is very rich. When you become my sixth cousin's wife, I will definitely double the money." Even Great Elder Princess was a little surprised, let alone Jingwan. Great Elder Princess frowned slightly at first. If others knew it, they would think that she was coveting Prince Jin's things. And now she was nice to Jingwan. She was Great Elder Princess. Even if she was not as rich as her sixth nephew, she was much better than other princes and nobles in the capital. After all, she had a good relationship with the emperor. She had rich fields and shops and a lot of rewards every year. Not to mention that she only had one legitimate daughter. Even if she had 8 or 10 more daughters, she would definitely get married in a grand way. "Yuyao, who did you hear these words from?" "My father told me." Yuyao betrayed her father without any hesitation. Great Elder Princess naturally knew what kind of person her husband was, and he would not say such words to Yuyao for no reason. Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan and said helplessly, "Your adoptive father is an idiot." Jingwan smiled. Even if he was her adoptive father, he was still a stranger to her. So she didn't know how to respond. However, although Prince Consort Jiang didn't like the affairs of the imperial court like her father, he was not picky in dealing with people. There should be a reason why he talked to you, Yao, like this. If you Yao made a scene because Great Elder Princess was kind to her, it would make everyone embarrassed. If someone said something to you Yao and let him know, it was very likely that he comforted you Yao with these words. In Great Elder Princess's mansion, Great Elder Princess held all the power. However, as far as Jingwan could see, although the gifts used by her daughters-in-law were good, they were not as good as those given to her. Therefore, it was natural that they did not like Jingwan. It was useless to complain to their own husbands, but it was very possible to incite Yu Yao. Jingwan reached out and pinched Yu Yao's face. You're really clever. Okay, I'll prepare your dowry in the future. Although it's not as good as your mother's, it's not a problem to add a few % to your dowry. I'm sure our Yu Yao will be glorious. I don't want your dowry. I want sixth cousins. Okay. Jingwan was overjoyed. How old are you? You're so shameless to think about dowry. Great Elder Princess also felt funny. Yu Yao stuck out her tongue at Great Elder Princess in disdain. What Jingwan could think of, Great Elder Princess could also think of. After Jingwan left, she would definitely ask about it carefully. Great Elder Princess had always pampered her daughter and brought up her son. She was dissatisfied with all her daughters who had been married off. Now she loved her youngest legitimate daughter the most. How dare Jingwan instigate Great Elder Princess in her ears? When Jingwan saw these things, she also felt helpless. However, Great Elder Princess just wanted to protect her, so she couldn't really refuse her coldly. Therefore, if some people were unhappy, she could only continue to be unhappy. The next day, Jingwan received more invitations, which were basically sent by the girls in the boudoir. After staying in the summer palace for a few days, almost all of them had settled down. Naturally, all kinds of banquets began again. In summer, there were very few banquets. However, the summer palace was much cooler than the capital city. It was really boring, so they naturally had to find something to do. Jingwan read several invitations. It seemed that they had discussed it, and the dates didn't overlap. Jingwan thought that this might be a tacit understanding formed in the early years. After all, the summer holidays were almost at this time every year. At that time, they would set the dates of their banquets. If there were some deletions or additions, they would probably make adjustments again. To return the favor, Jingwan felt that she should also hold a banquet. However, she needed to think about the exact time and ask her sister-in-law about it. She would go out to attend 2 more banquets. It was better to follow a first-come, first-served basis. Since someone had already set the time, there was no reason to force them to change it. Therefore, Jingwan turned to Sun Yijia. Sun Yijia's pregnancy had stabilized, but everyone was worried about her. She also planned to take more time to recover. Sun Yijia browsed through the invitations. Nominally, these invitations were set up by those unmarried girls. In fact, sometimes their mothers and grandmothers also sent some invitations. In the past, the banquet of the Minister of Official Personnel Affairs was set on June 20th. Now that grandfather is the Minister of Official Personnel Affairs, you can set the date on that day. With your current status, no one will be blind enough to go against you and fight for that day's time. With the Ruan family's current situation, they will definitely not hold a banquet. Furthermore, in the past few years, there were usually 2 cabinet elders who came to the summer palace. This year, there is 1 less cabinet elder, and there is 1 day left. If someone wants to fight for it, they will probably fight for 3 days. After all, although there is no rule that the time is arranged according to the status of each family, there are some people who think so. The closer they are to the front, the more they feel honored. Toward the end, Sun Yijia said with some indifference. Jingwan could roughly understand her thoughts. Based on her cold personality towards outsiders, she really didn't care about this kind of thing. Sister-in-law, did you send invitations here as well? Of course. Although it's not as valuable as before, I still want to save face. Moreover, The three of you are becoming more and more famous now. It's impossible for you to stop even if you want to. Look, you went out early this morning. You should know that this is all thanks to little sister Wan. Sun Ijia said with a hint of ridicule. It's because my third brother is a genius. Jing Wan said righteously. Those who didn't know would think that Jing Wan was proud of her brother. Sun Ijia knew the inside story. She reached out and pinched Jing Wan's face. She laughed and said, "You're getting more and more shameless. No one else would praise themselves as a genius." Jing Wan slapped her hand away. It's true. Yes. A genius. In fact, Sister Wan was indeed worthy of this title. Jing Wan wanted to play the zither again to give Sun Ijia's baby prenatal education. After she played 2 songs, Sun Ijia couldn't bear it anymore. She pushed her aside and played the zither herself. Jing Wan didn't feel embarrassed. However, Sun Ijia didn't play for long. Just as Jing Wan was about to leave, Sun Ijia handed her a small locked box and said in a low voice, "Sister Wan, you can go back and look at this by yourself. Don't worry and keep it. Don't think about rejecting it now. After you go back and look at it, don't think about returning it. If it's for you, it's for you." Jing Wan naturally didn't want it. However, judging from Sun Ijia's expression, she really couldn't take it back. "All right, I'll keep it. Sister-in-law, you won't harm me. I, Sun Ijia, have harmed anyone in my life, but it's impossible for me to harm you, little sister Wan. It could be said that you gave me a new life. If I harm you, I should be struck by lightning." Sun Ijia's voice was soft and slow, but it was unusually solemn. Jing Wan was stunned. Then she smiled and said, "So serious? I'll keep it well." As she spoke, she shook the small box in her hand. There was a slight clanging sound inside. It seemed that the thing inside was quite solid. After Jing Wan went back, she knew that her sister-in-law must have her reasons for telling her to keep it well. She dismissed the servants and then took out the key to open the small box. She took out the brocade pouch inside. It was a silent shape. It should be a token. Jing Wan's heart inexplicably beat a little faster. Whether it was in her previous life or in this life, she had never come into contact with something like this. However, she had seen similar things on television. Generally, as long as it was related, it was something that could take one's life. Jing Wan opened the brocade pouch and took out the item. Very good. It was impossible to pretend that she didn't know the significance of this item. Then, she thought of her sister-in-law's words. She could only keep it with ease. If she really sent it back and used it as an excuse, it would really attract other people's attention. After keeping the item, Jing Wan decided to ask her grandfather how much authority this thing had. Luo Peishan was sitting under the shade of a tree. A servant was fanning him. He was especially serious as he flipped through a book. Jing Wan walked closer. Grandfather really doesn't do proper work. Even if he has free time, he should read proper books. Luo Peishan glanced at her in annoyance. This indecent book was also made by you. Jing Wan unruly bowed. She took the servant's fan with a grin and sat beside Luo Peishan. It's not a big deal that granddaughter doesn't do proper work. But grandfather, you're different. 1 nose and 2 eyes. How am I different? Jing Wan chuckled. When she was in Qi'an Prefecture, why did she feel that her grandfather was serious and unapproachable? Why did she feel that he was a standard scholar official? Sure enough, people couldn't judge others based on their own opinion. Grandfather, I want to ask you something. Luo Peishan glanced at her. Just as he was about to speak, he saw her glance at her servant. Thus, he understood tacitly and sent him away. Speak. What is it? Grandfather, how much do you know about the death exemption gold medallion? Luo Peishan paused. His expression was slightly cold. But in the blink of an eye, he restrained the expression on his face. His eyes fell on the book again, and he spoke casually. Obviously, Luo Peishan didn't know as much as old Madam Sunday. At least, he didn't know that there was only one death-free gold medallion left. He only said what needed to be said and didn't ask anything else. https://www. Bicken. com/11/11807/66532228. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, Bicken.com. Chapter 203. Jing-wan was different from the past. Even if there was a banquet hosted by a princess, no one would find fault with her. On the contrary, there was a group of people who complimented her. Even if she was not good at poetry, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, even if she just sat quietly and acted like a little foodie, some people would still praise her. In fact, they were not simply circling around Jing-wan. The various new skincare creams from Rouge Pavilion were a little expensive, but other than those exclusive sets, the rest were nothing to them. They did not feel any pressure to use them. Originally, no one would have investigated who made these creams. However, the Luo family had special privileges. Even if they were married, they would have enough preferential shares to use every month. Moreover, Jing-wan herself was a moving living signboard. There would be a time when she would be noticed. Until now, these upper-class noble ladies basically knew that these creams were made by her. It was a matter of course. There had been no suitable opportunity before. Now was indeed the best time. As long as they were girls who liked to look beautiful, it was not surprising that they would look for Jing-wan. Because these people knew their limits, Jing-wan was also happy to tell them some skincare tips. As for whether there would be people who were greedy and thought that she did not tell the real secret, it had nothing to do with her. She was not obligated to do so. At most, these people would say a few words in private. They really did not dare to offend her in public. Therefore, it was quite good to have a big backer. Jing-wan felt that as time passed, she would most likely fall. Because of such a relatively relaxed atmosphere, Jing-wan even attended the banquets every day. When her biggest backer attacked her at night again, Jing-wan was basically calm and collected. Seeing that a certain someone was simply hugging her to sleep, Jing-wan even had the leisure to joke with him. For example, Yu Yao wanted to ask him for a dowry or something. Li Honyuan only responded faintly. He would send it to her tomorrow. Jing-wan just thought that he was joking. However, the next day, Jing-wan didn't go to the banquet because she was called by Great Elder Princess. No one dared to say anything in front of Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess ignored them. Jing-wan looked at the things placed in front of her. There were a total of 10 things. 2 coral trees that were about half a person's height, a jade bottle that was more than a foot tall, a box of golden pink pearls that were soft and flawless, and a box of high-quality gems, TSK. The rough estimate of these things should be, well, because things are precious, when they are rare, they are not easy to measure. In some people's eyes, they might be priceless, and in some people's eyes, they might be worthless. However, there is no doubt that these are the treasures of treasures. Mother, these things are. Great Elder Princess looked at her meaningfully and said with a smile, Han Yuan sent someone to send it here. Jing-wan's heart skipped a beat, but her expression didn't change. I see. They are for Yu Yao, Great Elder Princess continued. Isn't it normal for a cousin to give something to his cousin? Jing-wan chuckled. Whether they are biological sisters, cousins, or cousins, Han Yuan has only sent something to Princess Minxiang. This time, he sent so many valuable things to Yu Yao and specified that they are her dowry. Great Elder Princess looked at Jing-wan with a faint smile, which made Jing-wan's scalp tingle. She didn't even know how to respond. If a cousin wants to add to his sister's dowry, he'll have to wait until she gets married. There are still many years to go. The crux of the problem is that he's not delivering the dowry as a cousin, but as a brother-in-law. Wan helped foster mother analyze the situation. Even though Jing-wan was thick-skinned, she couldn't bear Great Elder Princess's gaze, and her face was slightly hot. How can daughter guess what His Highness's intention is? But since it's been sent here, adoptive mother will help Yu Yao keep it. Great Elder Princess nodded seriously and said, "Well, since Wan asked me to keep them, I'll keep them for Yu Yao." It had nothing to do with her. She didn't want Yu Yao to do, as she said, "No problem." Well, if she hadn't said something wrong last night, she wouldn't have been laughed at today. However, he still made a mental note to Li Hongyuan. Although he made a mental note, he didn't know if there would be a day when he could settle the score with Li Hongyuan. Fortunately, Great Elder Princess didn't ask her when she said something to Prince Jin. Jingwan didn't want to lie to Great Elder Princess, who had also treated her as a family member. However, how could she tell her that her fiancé attacked her at night? Yu Yao had no concept of other things, but children seemed to be born with no resistance to bright round pearls and the like. Therefore, she coveted that box of pearls. After knowing that it was hers, she hugged it and refused to let go. Pearls were relatively common. Of course, high-quality pearls were rare and only a few people had access to them. White and pink pearls were more suitable for children. Gold pearls were noble and didn't match with children. But this box of pearls was gold and pink. Gold was not heavy, so it was okay for Yu Yao to use it now. The little girl already knew how to be beautiful. She clung to her mother and talked about what she wanted to use the pearls for. She wanted beads, earrings, bracelets, necklaces, all of them. Great Elder Princess seemed to be helpless, but her eyebrows relaxed and her eyes were smiling. It could be seen that she really doted on Yu Yao. However, as the youngest legitimate daughter of Great Elder Princess, she was born to be doted on. In particular, this princess didn't have an empty title like most princesses. She didn't get along well with her family and was not favored by the emperor. By the time it was June 20th, Jingwan's invitation had already been sent out. However, because old Madame Luo did not intend to interfere, she only invited unmarried young ladies to the banquet. The number of princesses and princesses was not small. It could not be helped. More than half of the people who followed the emperor to escape the summer heat were people with the surname Li. During this period of time, although she couldn't see them every day, she got to know them day by day, so she didn't feel any pressure to deal with them. The most difficult one to please should be Princess Minxiang, who had the highest status and was Jingwan's future sister-in-law. If she wanted to make trouble, she could only endure most of the time. However, Princess Minxiang was really afraid of Li Hongyuan. She wouldn't do anything that might offend him. Moreover, her mother, noble consort Su, also told her to get along well with her future sister-in-law. In fact, regardless of other things, basically not many people would reject Jingwan just by getting along with her. After all, Jingwan was very young in mind. These teenage girls were all treated as younger sisters. As long as they were not naughty children, she would be tolerant and considerate enough. In this way, they had no reason to dislike her. Although the purpose was to enjoy the flowers, in fact, Jingwan didn't prepare much flowers. Instead, she prepared a lot of food, various kinds of juice, and some ingenious little games. To put it bluntly, she prepared to let these children eat, drink, and have fun. She wanted to be the king of children. At the beginning, Jingwan only took the younger girls, such as Yu Yao, and those who were about the same age as her. The others were more reserved, especially those girls who had just started to talk about marriage. Perhaps some people despised her in their hearts and thought that she was unruly and improper. However, as time went by, seeing that they really had fun, she seemed to have never been so carefree since she was a child. Moreover, at this time, everyone was the same. If they had fun, they would have fun. Probably no one would go out and say anything. Even those who took etiquette nannies with them were not criticized. Forget it. She would just drag her good sisters down with her. As for those who were really reserved and couldn't let go, Jingwan also prepared some elegant games that didn't require much movement, such as crossword puzzles. Because there were changes, it naturally wouldn't be boring. Then, there was the game of finding things according to the clues. The final thing would often be unexpected. Therefore, the girls who had never played these games couldn't help but want to play. And the final result was probably that they all went crazy from playing. Jingwan and the others were having fun here, but they didn't know that an urgent report was sent from the capital. Some areas in the south had continuous rain. Some experienced people said that the area would inevitably expand, and there would be a flood. Because Li Hongyuan had been paying attention to it for a long time, he naturally received the news. In her previous life, it didn't happen so early. Li Hongyuan thought that he could change people, but he couldn't change the sky. In her previous life, it happened late, which could only mean that the report was late. In the end, it caused such a big disaster. Some people had already been replaced by Li Hongyuan, so the same thing naturally wouldn't happen again. When Lu Chengdi received the news, he immediately gathered all the officials and sons. This kind of thing couldn't be neglected. If there really was a big flood, the consequences would be very serious. Although it hadn't happened yet, it was better to believe it than not. If they were prepared, there wouldn't be any losses even if they couldn't use it. And if they could use it, the losses would naturally be much lower. In this point, Lu Chengdi could definitely be called a wise emperor. And Li Hongyuan's time had come. My beloved officials, put your heads together and come up with a feasible solution as soon as possible. Don't say that you have groundless fears. I also hope that in the end, it will be groundless fears. Also, don't take things too simply and don't take it seriously. I want you to consider this matter in the worst possible way. Since Lu Chengdi had said so, the others naturally didn't dare to neglect. However, the Grand Secretary, Ruan Ruizong, didn't stand for long and felt dizzy and weak in the knees. They hurriedly asked him to sit down, but there was no improvement. His complexion was particularly bad. Lu Chengdi hurriedly ordered someone to call the imperial physician. Ruan Ruizong was suffering from heat stroke. Lu Chengdi's residence was located at the top of the mountain, which was the coolest place in the entire palace. In addition, there were many ice basins, so one could even feel the obvious coolness. But in the end, he was suffering from heat stroke. According to the imperial physician's explanation, Ruan Ruizong was old and weak. When he went up the mountain, he was in a hurry and sweated. When he came here, it was suddenly cool, and he couldn't stand it. Seeing him like this, Lu Chengdi frowned and finally sighed in his heart. He was indeed old. He waved his hand and asked someone to send him back. It was a busy time now, so it was troublesome to see Ruan Ruizong's half-dead appearance. Ruan Ruizong felt ashamed and hurriedly apologized. Speaking of which, it had been relatively peaceful for half a month. Everyone in the family closed their doors, and he didn't hear any gossip. He only felt that it was as peaceful as before, and his body seemed to be much more relaxed. He didn't expect that there would be a problem at this time. Was he really old? If he still stayed in the position of Grand Secretary like this, wouldn't it annoy the emperor? But it was indeed not a good time for him to resign. So he could only be thick-skinned and wait for the emperor to let him resign. Prince Rui watched Ruan Ruizong being supported by people. Ruan Ruizong's back was hunched, and he left step by step. His mother was right. Ruan Ruizong was really dying. He withdrew his gaze and focused on the current matter. Of course, no one would inform Li Hongyuan of such an important matter. At this time, he was living in a courtyard outside the palace again. He wasn't as leisurely as others thought. He was looking at the geomancy map. The information he received was far more detailed than Lu Chengdi's. He found the reported locations on the geomancy map bit by bit and calculated the range of the rainfall. After all, it had been too long in his previous life. He couldn't remember many things so clearly. Moreover, what he knew was limited. He frowned slightly and circled the locations of the granaries and important dams. Finally, he was 100% sure that the situation this time would be much better than in his previous life. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. However, he still needed to find Luo Peishan for the specifics. There were many things that he needed to say. Master, Grand Secretary has gone back. Oh, how is the Ruan family? https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653229. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com Mobile Edition website, mbicken.com. Chapter 204. Li Honyuan was noncommittal. The flood in the south was the most important thing. Ruan Ruizong had been muddle-headed for 10 or 20 years. He should be helped to wake him up. As for whether he would be unable to recover from the setback or even die, or survive and have a great change in temperament, if he was still young, the latter was more likely. Unfortunately, he was already old. Perhaps the scene would be too exciting, and he would not be able to catch his breath. However, if he could pull through, Li Honyuan would probably admire him. That would also mean that he would be oppressed by him for a few more years. Grind. Li Honyuan was not interested in the things over there. He should tidy up the things that should be sorted out. Eunuch Mu hurriedly stepped forward and began to grind swiftly. It must be said that grinding could be considered his specialty when serving Li Honyuan. He was fast and good. After he was done, he gently stepped back. Li Honyuan spread out a booklet in the shape of a booklet and thought for a while. Then he picked up a pen and wrote very quickly. The words were like his person. The strokes were vigorous and powerful. However, ordinary people might not understand. Even if they were scholars, unless they liked it very much, they probably didn't study cursive. Luo Peishan was different. He had passed the imperial examination for decades and had a lot of time to study things other than the imperial examination. If he couldn't understand, Li Honyuan would probably throw 4 words at him. You have an undeserved reputation. It was said that a focused man was the most charming. Li Honyuan was a handsome man. Perhaps because his marriage with Jingwan had been settled. He rarely had a gloomy aura. His eyes were handsome, and his expression was focused with confidence. Few people could not resist him. If Jingwan was present, she might be tempted at this moment. He wrote 2 or 3 pages in a row. Be careful. Be careful in case the woman of the Ruan family silences him. Ruan Ruizong could not stand it and die, but he couldn't be killed. That would be too boring. Yes. In fact, there was no need for him to remind them. His subordinates would have considered this point. It had been a long time since they had done something for the first time. They had more or less figured out the extent to which they had to do to satisfy their master. Ruan Ruizong was sent home because of his mental and physical exhaustion. Originally, Luchengdi's people wanted to send him to Madame Ruan, but Ruan Ruizong refused. When he found out what his own backyard was like, he was very glad that he refused at this time. Otherwise, he would really lose face. It was quite strange for Rue to enter the house in such a state. In the past, when he returned home, even if his wife did not personally welcome him, she would arrange for someone to take good care of him. Now he had been sitting in the hall for a while, but no one came to serve him. There was not even a sip of tea. He was already feeling unwell, so it was inevitable that he would feel unhappy. Knowing the current situation of the Ruan clan, Zhang Xian stood up and headed to the rear courtyard. The servants he met along the way were the same as usual. When they saw him, they saluted him politely. However, when they were approaching the main courtyard where the couple lived, they saw a maidservant running out in a panic. When she saw Ruan Ruizong, her expression was as if she had seen a ghost. The first thing she did was not salute, but turn around and run away. She did not have the least bit of etiquette. Ruan Ruizong's face darkened. Anyone who saw it knew that something must have happened. Although he did not know what it was, the way to deal with this kind of situation was almost the same. Go and stop her. Ruan Ruizong's manservant obeyed the order and hurried to catch up. An ordinary servant girl in her teens could not be faster than a man who was a few years older than her. She was quickly caught up and then pulled back. The young maidservant knelt in front of Ruan Ruizong, trembling and crying miserably. She kept kowtowing. Master, I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. Please don't beat me to death. I beg you, I beg you. What did you see? What did you hear? Say it clearly. Ruan Ruizong said sternly. The servant girl seemed to realize that she had said something wrong. She glanced at Ruan Ruizhong in fear and quickly lowered her head. She knelt on the ground and trembled. No matter what, she refused to say a word. Ruan Ruizhong kicked her away. Keep an eye on her. He went straight to the main courtyard. He wanted to see what kind of shameful things this family, or his stepwife, was hiding from him. Obviously, when Ruan Ruizhong entered the courtyard, he found that something was wrong. Usually, there were old maids guarding the gate of the courtyard. When he entered, he could see the servants performing their duties. But the gate of the courtyard was half open, and he didn't see anyone. Ruan Ruizhong subconsciously lightened his footsteps and did not push the half-closed door. After entering, he wanted to go into the room. However, he vaguely heard a sound. Following the sound, he found that it came from the pavilion in the courtyard. There was a curtain outside the pavilion. Under normal circumstances, it was down, but now it was down. A few days ago, it was his wife and daughter who accompanied him to admire the moon now. There was a woman's delicate panting and a man's rough panting. Moreover, there was more than one man. One of the men was obviously swearing, but the woman did not seem to be humiliated. Instead, she was more aroused and urged him. In exchange, another man's lewd laughter was accompanied by the sound of a palm slapping a certain place. No matter how embarrassing the voices were, Ruan Ruizhong knew who the three voices belonged to. It was his stepwife and his two sons. As if struck by lightning, Ruan Ruizhong stood rooted to the ground with a blank expression on his face. Look at your hungry face. How long has it been since I fed you? But even if you do it, can you satisfy me? The woman did not speak, but she snorted obviously. Actually, I want to know, whose child is Fang Fei? Father, one of our brothers, or some wild man outside? That's right, that's right. Tell us, whose child is she? Ruan Ruizhong's heart was much colder than the winter. It was so cold that his blood almost stopped flowing. Why do you care who she is? Nominally, she is your sister. Do you want to touch her as well? The woman said. In exchange, the two men laughed ambiguously. The daughter you taught must be the same as you. Ruan Ruizhong clutched the clothes on his chest tightly. His heart seemed to be fiercely pinched, as if he was about to suffocate. He gasped for breath, as if he would pass out in the next moment. At this time, a gust of wind caused the curtains around the pavilion to open a gap. That unsightly scene directly crashed into the depths of Ruan Ruizhong's eyes. His dignified and virtuous wife. He still remembered her shyness on the night of their wedding. From that night onwards, every time they got married, she would be abnormally reserved. Sometimes he wanted to do something, but he was afraid that he would offend her. As time passed, he began to enjoy the warmth of their relationship more and more. But now she was so unrestrained. His two sons, even if they were not that outstanding, he was still quite satisfied. They were calm and steady, gentle and polite. If there were no accidents in the family, when he retired, even if he could not become an official, he thought that the family would be harmonious. But now, they were like two beasts. He thought that the family was harmonious, and he thought that no one could compare to his wife and children. In the end, this family was a den of prostitution. His wife and children were all beasts. Pooh! Ruan Ruizhong could not bear it anymore and directly spat out a mouthful of blood. This scene happened to be seen by one of his sons. His pupils rapidly shrank and suddenly withered, as if he was scared silly. Father. It was like a whisper. When the brother opposite him heard this, his body trembled. What nonsense are you shouting? As for Madame Ruan, she was skilled in martial arts. But because of her absolute trust in the people around her, coupled with the ups and downs of the sea of desire, she was only vaguely aware of the strangeness outside. When she heard the word father, she instantly recovered a lot. Just as she was about to get up, the person behind her suddenly pulled away and rushed out. Father. It was accompanied by fear. No matter how deep he had sunk, he was now awake. Madame Ruan sat up with a whoosh, her expression stern. The man beside her was scared pale. Ruan Ruizhong, who had spat out blood, slowly fell down. But his eyes were filled with bone-piercing pain and bloodthirsty hatred. He was a scholar. He had the strength and bearing of a scholar. He was capable of doing things. Under normal circumstances, he was amiable. He had probably never shown such an expression in his life. So much so that the man who ran out wearing only a piece of underwear hesitated, not daring to go forward. Old master, old master. The manservant who was in charge of guarding the young maidservant had somehow come in. Seeing the situation, he practically scrambled over to catch Juan Ruizhong, who was about to fall to the ground. Master, master. As he pinched Juan Ruizhong's philtrum, he took advantage of the cover to give Juan Ruizhong a pill. Juan Ruizhong's eyes were still open, but he was still staring at the pavilion. That appearance was as if he had died with his eyes open. His son was trembling in fear. The ugly thing under him drooped. Such an ugly appearance. Where was the modesty of a gentleman? Being stared at like that, his legs went soft and he knelt on the ground with a bang. As for the other two people in the pavilion, they tidied up their clothes and came out. Compared to the two men who were trembling in fear, Madame Ruan was much calmer. Although she was frowning, the focus was not on the fact that her husband had caught her in the act. She looked at Juan Ruizhong indifferently. How did you come in? It had been so many years. Although she had never encountered this old thing coming back when he was not supposed to, even if she did, she would be able to know at the first moment. She would be able to pack up at the fastest speed, so that he would not be able to detect the slightest clue. It was reasonable to say that today should be the same. However, not only did Juan Ruizhong break in, she did not receive any news at all. Because she was absolutely relieved, she let down her guard. So much so that she did not even know how long Juan Ruizhong had been here. Juan Ruizhong's eyes widened. His finger trembled as he pointed at his stepwife. You. She was caught doing such an unbearable thing, but there was no fear, no guilt, let alone repentance. It looked as if it was impossible for him to break in. The rise and fall of his chest became more obvious. Master, nothing can happen to you. If something happens to you, wouldn't it benefit these adulterous men and women? This bitch wants to anger you. If you die, no one will know about their scandal. In the future, the Ruan family will be completely controlled by her. So, you must hold on. You must hold on, master. Madame Ruan's gaze fell on the servant. Even if this servant was not one of her people, he usually gave her some information about Juan Ruizhong's affairs outside. With the courage of a normal person, he should avoid this kind of thing. But now he said such words. It would be strange if there was no problem. Madame Ruan was not in a hurry to deal with him. Instead, she looked around and did not see anything. However, the people who were supposed to be guarding outside did not appear. Madame Ruan suddenly smiled. She was very clear that she had fallen into a trap. This time, it was not her daughter who did anything, but her. And it was so ruthless. How many of her people did not know? That's right. In her opinion, being caught in the act by Juan Ruizhong was not a big deal. If he did not know, there were ways to deal with it. If he knew, there were also ways to deal with it. Although relying on Juan Ruizhong was beneficial, there were also disadvantages in the future. Her actions would be restricted. If he knew, the worst-case scenario was to kill him. The manservant's words seemed to have worked. Juan Ruizhong took a deep breath and slowly stood up with the help of the manservant. He walked forward step by step. He used to care for this woman as much as he loved her. Now, he hated her as much as he felt pain. He swung his hand and slapped her. B***TCH, I've been so good to you, so good to you. Madame Ruan's had only tilted a little. The current Juan Ruizhong was almost half dead. How much strength could his hand have? For her, it was not painful at all. When I married you, you were already so old. I was still young and beautiful. Shouldn't you be good to me? Your body is not strong and not strong. Every time you are not interested, you are done. Isn't it normal for me to wear a green hat? You have many sons, so you don't have to look outside. Now your sons are almost useless. Your grandchildren can be found. They are young enough, and there are many of them. Pa. Juan Ruizhong was so angry that he slapped her again. You lewd woman, lewd woman. Madame Rouen sneered. She had been afraid of breaking the vases before. Now, she was a turtle in a jar. What else did she have to care about? The person hiding in the dark really knew everything about her. Then, she was almost certain that she would not die. Her value alive was far greater than death. So, she was now fearless. However, the other party did not make a move. Once he made a move, it was like a thunderbolt. This method was really likable. Moreover, everything was clearly under his control, but she did not notice it at all. This ability was really admirable. Rouen Ruizhong, you can only scold me now. Other than that, what else can you do? Your life has been smooth sailing, and you think you are infallible. What ability do you have outside? You don't even know what your own backyard is like. You were smart your whole life, but also stupid your whole life. How does it feel to lose your integrity in your later years? If I didn't believe you, that's why I said you think you are infallible, stupid. If you didn't disguise yourself so well, Madame Rouen sneered. A 16-year-old girl married an old man like you. Would she treat the nest of children who are much older than her as her own? Considerate in all aspects? Do you think you are the emperor? How shameless do you think you are? You actually did not doubt it and wholeheartedly believed it. Then, you deserve to be played in the palm of your hand. You only have yourself to blame. Rouen Ruizhong was trembling with anger, but he could not say a word to refute. Bitch, this old man wants you to die a horrible death, a horrible death. Whether I die or not, I'm afraid it is not up to you to decide. You have to ask the person behind you first. What do you mean? What do I mean? For 10 or 20 years, it was hidden. Suddenly, it was discovered by you. No one got rid of the gatekeeper. How could you come in? Madame Rouen now seemed to have a broken jar and did not care at all. However, until the end, no one knew what the result would be. As long as she was alive, there was hope. If she was dead, then it was all over. Rouen Ruizhong's first reaction was not anything else. His family's biggest scandal was known by an outsider. And as the head of the family, he actually needed an outsider's help to find out? How many people had laughed at him? Who is it? His old face was terrifyingly gloomy, as if he wanted to tear the other person into pieces. He seemed to be in better spirits than before. He really valued face more than the sky. What can you do if you know? Even if it was your past glory, I'm afraid you did not have the qualifications to make anyone shut up, not to mention the current you. What's more, I don't know. Madame Rouen was no longer gentle and considerate towards Rouen Ruizhong. Instead, she raised her chin slightly and looked at him with disdain. Rouen Ruizhong really wanted to strangle her to death. Unable to bear it, he slapped her again. Sure enough, hatred could also support a person's spirit. This slap was heavier than the previous one. It was the best proof. You can also get angry at me. However, if you dare to hit me again, don't blame me for being impolite. There was a limit to her patience. The reason why she did not resist was because she wanted to keep a trump card. After all, she had never used martial arts outside. What if the other party did not know? Perhaps in the future, she could catch him off guard. Not to mention other things, it would be good if she could escape. Sure enough, when Rouen Ruizhong reached out again, she grabbed his wrist and threw it away. If Rouen Ruizhong was not supported, he probably would have staggered. It was said that a woman had 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and treated her husband as her sky. He had never seen a woman who had committed a heinous crime still be so insolent. Rouen Ruizhong's eyes were about to split open. Wei sure, I can't do anything to others, but your Wei clan, Madame Rouen, no, it might be more appropriate to call her Wei sure now. She laughed mockingly. Wei sure, do as you wish. She turned around and kicked the man kneeling on the ground. It seemed like a casual kick, but it was enough to make people feel heart-wrenching pain. Wait until the person behind you comes and tells you how to deal with me. Then come again. He watched helplessly as she entered the room and closed the door, but he could not do anything to her. He cared about his family, his reputation, and his face. However, when he met someone who did not care about these things, the one who was afraid of taking action became her. That woman had nothing to fear, but the two in front of him were his sons. He was old, but the dignity of a superior was still there. The other one was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground. Wei Shi's reaction and words had greatly surprised them. However, they did not have the courage. This was their father. Even if he really beat them to death, they would not dare to do anything. However, this did not prevent them from begging for mercy. Father, son knows his mistake. Please calm down. Don't be angry and harm your body. Father, it's all because of that bitch who seduced son. Otherwise, son would not dare to offend stepmother even if you gave son 100 guts. It's her. It's all because of her that our family became like this. Think about it. When mother was still here, our family was so good. Ruan Ruizhong paused. Thinking of his first wife, he felt sad for a moment. However, it was useless to think about it at this time. Ever since Wei Shi married into the family, he had rarely thought of his first wife. In the first few years, perhaps he wanted to go to the temple to do something for her and bury her in the ancestral grave. This was a long journey. Perhaps he could get some incense when the ancestral house offered sacrifices. Ruan Ruizhong staggered, obviously a little tired. Evil creature, get out and put on your clothes. He rolled and crawled away. Ruan Ruizhong glanced at the closed door, straightened his back, raised his head slightly, and went outside. He could now maintain his dignity in this way. However, the servant who was supporting him knew best that he was trembling slightly. Wei Shi heard all the movements outside. Sure enough, men were all the same. When they made a mistake, they would only push it to the woman. So what if she seduced him? In the beginning, he was someone who had married a wife and had a child. He was not a young boy who was in love for the first time. She hooked her finger and he would come over. Truly clear and honest, knowing etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame. Even a young boy would not hook up with his stepmother. Even if he would not reveal it, he would stay far away. Did he really think that she would casually pick someone to make a move on? A straight body was not afraid of a crooked shadow. The root was rotten. Pretending to be a gentleman, it made people feel disgusted. Wei Shi frowned. So far, she had not seen the main character. Although the biggest suspect was Jin Qinhuang, it was still a suspicion. She did not have any conclusive evidence. She was like a mouse under his cat's paw. He gently fiddled with it, and it could make you tumble, but you could not even see his true appearance. This kind of powerlessness was really unprecedented. Ruan Ruizhong felt that someone was looking at him as a joke. How could Wei Shi not have this kind of feeling? 10 or 20 years of hard work was wasted just like that. She was not reconciled. No matter how unwilling she was just a turtle in a jar, a prisoner. Ruan Ruizhong ordered people to lock the courtyard door and pinched the key himself. The people outside were all Wei Shi's personal servants. These people clearly knew what Wei Shi was doing, but they all kept their mouths shut. It could be seen that Wei Shi's imperial methods were very effective. Thinking about it again, the entire Ruan family's inner courtyard was managed by her without a drop of water leaking out. If she wanted to do something to him, just thinking about it made him shudder. However, this kind of matter of adultery with her stepson, she would not dare to let the whole residence know. He ordered his servant to call the eldest daughter-in-law. Looking at the dispirited face of his daughter-in-law, who was punished because of the previous separation of the family. Did she, or did they know something that caused such a strong reaction? Flog this group of lowly servants to death. From now on, Ruan family will be under your control. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653231. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com mobile version reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 205. Ruan Ruizhong's gaze was heavy, but he didn't explain. In this situation, even if he knew that the other party was well aware, he couldn't expose it and embarrass himself. Many times, people were like this. They needed to pretend to be peaceful. Madame Ruan didn't laugh, but it was clear from her eyebrows that her heart had turned bright. She lowered her head and respectfully accepted the order. Even though she knew that her father-in-law wanted to use her to deal with this matter, it was necessary to deal with it well. If not, she might have to bear all the consequences. However, she did not mind being able to deal with that B***TCH openly. She had been looking forward to this day for far too long. However, when Ruan Ruizhong saw her expression, his heart became gloomier. He wasn't sure if his eldest son was also involved. Did the eldest daughter-in-law's hatred for Wei originated from this? But there was no way to investigate this matter. If he really found out, he was afraid that he would really collapse. He would rather lie to himself. The eldest daughter-in-law was just jealous that Wei had always been in power. And according to Wei's age, she probably wouldn't be able to turn things around for the rest of her life. Ruan Ruizhong left in a huff, and his two evil sons still followed behind him with pale faces. Madame Ruan looked at her two younger brothers-in-law. She actually didn't quite understand what that lewd woman, Wei Shi, had given them. Even if she gave them young and beautiful concubines, they still couldn't be tied down. Although the servants of the Ruan family all obeyed Wei's words, the Ruan family was so big that there were always people she couldn't control. For example, these daughters-in-law. It was good enough that she could arrange a few people. Moreover, for a woman to have a foothold in the backyard, a man's trust was the foundation. No matter how powerful Wei was in the Ruan family, other than her own group of die-hard followers, there was a prerequisite for others to revere her. Now, the head of the family, Ruan Ruizhong, wanted to deal with her. Her people were all under his control. Compared to those people she didn't want to do, who would be stupid enough to go against the head of the family for her? Most importantly, there were quite a few people in the courtyard who weren't under Madame Wei's watch all year round. They didn't have her trust, and naturally didn't have the heart to win them over. They didn't feel the generosity and benevolence of their mistress. Now, weren't they the best executioners under Madame Ruan's command? The group of people who were the guards of the courtyard were now missing. When they didn't know about Madame Wei's trump card, Madame Ruan didn't feel anything wrong at all. There were only a dozen people who served her closely. In essence, they were all weak people. There was no need to worry about them playing any tricks. Madame Ruan looked down at this group of people. Because of Madame Wei, they seemed to be well behaved on the surface, but they did a lot of tricks in the dark. Like master, like servant. It was not an exaggeration to use this saying on them. Now, they were kneeling in front of her, kowtowing and begging for mercy. The more miserable these people were, the more carefree she felt. She didn't call for the execution immediately. On one hand, she wanted to see the appearance of these bullies begging. On the other hand, she wanted to wait for a person called Ruan Fangfei, who was pampered in the Ruan family. Nominally, she was a sister-in-law. In reality, who knew if she was a daughter, a niece, or an unrelated person. Unfortunately, after waiting for about a quarter of an hour, she didn't see anyone. She was probably avoiding suspicion. Beat them. All of them were gagged under normal circumstances. There would be varying degrees of discomfort when seeing blood. However, when these people were your big enemies, this discomfort would turn into pleasure. It was best to beat these people's bones, flesh, and blood into a ball. Madame Ruan looked at these people attentively. One by one, their faces twisted and they struggled in pain. Then they breathed their last. Under her two words, continue, they became unrecognizable. At first, they were quiet. Then, they slowly smiled. In the end, they smiled and smiled, but tears fell. It was like madness. She was already frightened by the pile of dead people. Her hands and feet went soft. She was even more worried that she would have nightmares for half a month. Madam, it's all in the past. A mother beside the woman comforted her in a low voice with a pale face. Madame Rouen gradually restrained her emotions. Yes, it was all in the past. She avenged her child, who died in vain. She glanced at the closed courtyard door. It's a pity. It was a pity that she couldn't let this be *tch end up in the same way. If she could, Madame Rouen wanted to bury her with her own hands. In the end, family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. Even if Master hates her at this moment, for the sake of face, he won't attack her at this time. He also won't let Madame do it. The mother still said in a low voice, I know. I'm just worried that a long night will cause trouble. That's impossible, right? Master said that he caught her personally. How can he forgive her? Any man wouldn't be able to stand this kind of thing. But mother, you also know how powerful this *tch is. Sometimes she's evil and bewitching. It even makes people suspect that she's not human. If she couldn't see her die with her own eyes, the woman's heart would never be completely calm. The mother also felt evil. She kept praying in her heart. Although she said that Madame Rouen made up a reason to kill so many people. Then she went to report to Rouen Ruizong. The so-called reasons were all for the people outside to hear. Everyone knew that it was most likely false. It was just an excuse that they used to cover up their shame. Just like Emperor Lu Cheng in the past. He was clearly the one who killed the imperial noble consort. But he said that the imperial noble consort died of blood loss during childbirth. The death of the imperial noble consort made him furious and killed all the servants. It was so clumsy. However, he was the emperor. No one dared to say anything about the excuse he used. Other people were different. They could imagine 100 truths in their minds. Madame Rouen knew what the situation was, but she didn't care at all. Could her life be worse than before? Now, the Rouen family was surrounded by rumors. Everything was caused by that *tch's *tch. When the mother and daughter disappeared, the rumors would fade over time. When everyone forgot about it, it would get better. Although her heart wasn't completely calm, it was much more relaxed. Her two uncles knelt on the stone road under the hot sun. She didn't even lift her eyelids. It wasn't just these two people who should be kneeling here. However, there were some things that her father-in-law would never allow to be exposed. Madame Rouen reported the matter unhurriedly and stood obediently with her eyes lowered. Rouen Ruizong just rested for a while. He wanted to take a good rest. However, this body wasn't something he could do whatever he wanted. His current situation was really beyond his ability. She glanced at her daughter-in-law. In the past, because of the difference between men and women, even a daughter-in-law wouldn't easily look at them. Perhaps because of this, she repeatedly missed the opportunity to discover some truths. She was indeed older than Madame Wei, but she looked like she was 20 years older than Madame Wei. Why did she endure for so long without revealing it? If she had revealed it earlier, he wouldn't have been so miserably deceived by Madame Wei. Thinking of this, anger rose from his heart again. He took 2 deep breaths. He repeatedly warned himself not to be angry. Don't be angry. If he died, occasionally, he felt that it would be better if he died like this. It was shameful to live. However, if he died, he might be directly drowned in dirty water. Therefore, no matter what, he had to deal with the matter cleanly. Madame Rouen didn't know his thoughts. Otherwise, she would have mocked him. Madame Wei hid it too well. She didn't have any conclusive evidence to use against her. Many things were deliberately revealed to her. It was specious. In addition, she had always been generous with money and never treated others harshly. If she revealed it, would she end up well? She still had a child and a maternal family. It wasn't worth it to fight to the death. I'm not worried when you do things. Right now, the family is in a mess. You should put in more effort. He paused. If you can't handle it, ask your sisters-in-law to help you. I'm not worried when you do things. This was Madame Wei's patent. Hearing these words now, it was not just a little disgusting. What did he mean by asking his sisters-in-law to help if she couldn't handle it? He was worried that she would monopolize the power and become the second Madame Wei. No matter what she thought in her heart, she didn't show it at all. Right now, she really didn't have much interest in the power of this family. Father-in-law, please don't worry. It's just that this daughter-in-law sees that you don't seem to be well. Are you tired because of the political affairs? You have to take care of yourself. She found an excuse for him and built a ladder. Naturally, he went along with it. I'm indeed busy with political affairs. I need to rest in the afternoon. If someone forget it, you can go. Yes. Ruan Ruiz Hong leaned on the couch drowsily, but it was really difficult to sleep soundly. Just at this time, Ruan Fangfei came to see him. Because he had a daughter when he was old, he pampered and doted on her like a precious treasure. He gave her the best of everything. Because of her excellence, he pampered her even more. Even if she was particularly stubborn towards Jean Qinhuang, he still indulged her. Because of her, the whole family was not at peace. He also didn't harshly criticize her. But the result was, he didn't even know whose child she was. Scram, make her scram for me. If she dares to take half a step out of the courtyard, immediately beat her to death. This lowly child was the most powerful evidence of that slut wearing a green hat on his head. It was his biggest stain. Ruan Ruizong was really thinking about how to make her directly die. Ruan Fangfei heard Ruan Ruizhong's words. Although she didn't care about this father anymore, but for her own sake, she was still willing to put down her status and be a filial daughter. But now, it seemed that it wasn't a question of whether she wanted to please him or not, but rather whether he would let her continue to live. Even if her heart was higher than the sky, but without the support of the corresponding power, in the end, her life could only be as thin as paper. Right now, she was trapped everywhere and hit a wall everywhere. If this incompetent father abandoned her, what else could she do? At this moment, Ruan Fangfei couldn't help but tremble with fear. What did her mother do? Not only was she grounded, the people around her were all beaten to death, and now she was implicated. According to her father's current state, she was afraid that saying a few soft words and crying and begging would not be effective. After standing for a moment, she prepared to go back first. Along the way, the servants were evading her and pointing fingers. Her face was unmoved, but her eyes were filled with darkness. After hearing about Ruan Fangfei's treatment, Madame Ruan, who was busy reorganizing, called people and even brought her unmarried children, who were also in trouble because of Ruan Fangfei's marriage, directly to Ruan Fangfei's courtyard. Didn't you envy her for having countless good things in the past? Now, as long as you like it, you can move it all back. Ruan Fangfei suppressed her anger. Sister-in-law, what do you mean? What do I mean? Haven't you always been smart? Can't you understand such simple words? Then I'll make it clear to you. Right now, I'm bringing people to snatch things. Move it for me. Even if the final dust had not settled, she no longer had so many scruples. At this point, if her father-in-law still let that *TCH turn things around, it could only be said that he was not a man. As for her, she had already completely offended her, so she was no longer afraid of itching. You dare. Why wouldn't I dare? Right now, the one in charge of the family was this madam. It could be said that it was human nature to take advantage of the situation. Little Aunt is so generous today, so I won't be polite, the young girl who followed her said with a smile. She rolled her eyes and directly barged into the room, quickly carrying out a jewelry box. Ruan Fangfei took a look and saw that it was her favorite box. Naturally, it was filled with her favorite things. Basically, they were all very valuable. Without thinking, she wanted to snatch it back. Unfortunately, the girl's people rushed up and blocked her. As for her, after her eldest sister-in-law and the others came in, she shrank into a corner. She could not even get close to it. At first, the girl was a little scared. Seeing this scene, she slightly raised her chin and laughed. Little Aunt ruined my marriage, so just treat it as compensation for me. Although I find it inconceivable that a disfigured and broken thing like you can be a prince's concubine, I don't envy you for serving an old man. I think you won't lack these things in the future. Ruan Fangfei's eyes were red. Seeing this group of people begin to move her things, she gritted her teeth in hatred. She aimed at a nearby vase, rushed up, wrapped it up, and smashed it on the ground. With a bang, it broke into pieces. Even if her things were smashed, she would not let others benefit from it. This movement shocked many people. Taking advantage of the short time, they were stunned. Ruan Fangfei smashed a few more treasures on the cabinet next to her. It was a kind that would completely break after being smashed. Madame Ruan hurriedly stepped forward. She was not polite at all. She grabbed her hair and gave her a big slap. Ruan Fangfei's body was out of control. She slammed into the cabinet and started bleeding. Unfortunately, she did not receive any pity. Come, watch this money-losing and prodigal thing for me. Receiving the signal, two big and rough women rolled up their sleeves and came forward, carrying her to the side. Seeing her girl being bullied like this, a maid felt distressed. But as soon as she stood up, she was slapped back. The others did not dare to make a move. Ruan Fangfei's hatred was monstrous at this time. Unfortunately, as soon as she made a move, she was pinched by the two women openly and secretly. How could a delicate girl like her resist? Madame Ruan saw all of this. The things on this little B*****''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''there are so many good things. Their eyes lit up. Although Ruan Fangfei did not have many things on her, they were all exquisite. They were rough laborers and only got a little bit of money every month. They would only get a little reward during the New Year and festivals. All of them added up to 20 or 30 taels of silver, which would make them smile from ear to ear. They could not earn as much money as Ruan Fangfei's bracelet in their lifetime. Now, it was a windfall from the sky. They were like two wolves pouncing on a little sheep. They were worried that others would take a share of the soup, so they acted quickly and ruthlessly. Ruan Fangfei naturally suffered. Her hair was messy, her belt was torn off, her hands were red and swollen, and the pearl repair shoes on her feet were directly taken off. She looked like she had been bullied. The others wanted to go forward, but unfortunately, the things had been divided up. They could only think of other things. However, their master did not say anything, so they did not dare to steal. They only hoped that their master could leak some through the cracks. That would be enough for them to be ecstatic. Madame Ruan looked at Ruan Fangfei with a smile. It was not bad that she did not see the miserable appearance of that B*******. Ruan Fangfei met her gaze. There was no longer any suppression in her eyes, which made people feel frightened. She calmed down. You really are not a good thing. You really have the same virtue as your B****** mother. You are used to putting on an act. You will die a horrible death. Ruan Fangfei said like a ghost. Madame Ruan sneered. Then I will wait and see how you, a stray dog, will turn over. Mother, there are so many good things. It is not good for us to take them alone. Why don't we let the other brothers and sisters take them together? My daughter is a director. You can get someone to call them. As long as they are willing, they will all come. Therefore, not long after, more people joined the ranks of dividing the things. Among them, most of them were on good terms with Ruan Fangfei. However, it was hard to find one who was wholeheartedly loyal to her. Ruan Fangfei was used to being surrounded by stars and was used to pretending. From time to time, she would show a high and mighty attitude, which would naturally hurt them. Over time, a seed had been planted in their hearts. When she was surrounded by rumors, she could not leave the house. Her marriage was ruined. Her friends left one by one. And the culprit was her, Ruan Fangfei. Naturally, she would completely explode. Such a jinx, it would not be too much to skin her alive. Perhaps there were one or two who were sincerely sad and wanted to defend her. However, before they could say anything, they were suppressed by the others who found the spearhead. Human nature was selfish. No one wanted to be ostracized by everyone because of her. They could only keep silent. However, in Ruan Fangfei's eyes, they were a group of ungrateful wolves. She was so good to them. Sure enough, there was no good thing in this world. Everything that could be moved was moved away, including the clothes. Only a few pieces were left for her. Her clothes were all brand new and had only been bought not long ago. On Ruan Fangfei's body, other than some special ones, she could not find any clothes that she had worn in the first year. After it was completely quiet, she realized that all the people who serve her had also been called away. The courtyard of the temporary residence was not as big as the residence in the capital. However, Ruan Fangfei's courtyard was not small. Now it was empty. Ruan Fangfei shrank in the same place for a long time. Her head leaned back and her eyes were a little empty. Looking at the empty house, she did not seem to understand how it ended up like this. She was humiliated outside, but her position at home was not shaken. How did it change in the blink of an eye? Those so-called nephews and nieces were like kittens in front of her. When she was happy, she would tease them and they would meow obediently. Now, they dared to step on her head and wave their claws at her. Outside, she was not as strong as others. She could adjust her mentality, endure the humiliation, and find an opportunity to take revenge. However, these people at home were like ants in her eyes. Now, they were collectively opposing her. The bigger the difference, the more resentful it was in her heart. She got up and rushed out. However, when she reached the entrance of the courtyard, she realized that the door had been locked from the outside. She smashed the door and shouted for her to get out. "Young lady, calm down. Master said that if you take half a step out of the courtyard, you will be beaten to death. The first madam is doing this for your own good. She is just worried that you will be impulsive and lose your life. It is not worth it." Outside, an old woman was eating melon seeds while persuading her. In exchange, Ruan Fangfei cursed. No matter what Ruan Fangfei's mentality was, with her education, she had never scolded anyone. Perhaps it should be said that she was smart. The skill of scolding people was self-taught. She was not like a shrew. However, her viciousness and insidiousness were really unmatched by ordinary people. Everyone who heard it was speechless. The first madam was right. It was true that one could know a person for a long time without understanding their heart. The most vicious person in the Ruan family was the kindest person in the past. Because Ruan Ruizhong had not said how to deal with it, Madame Ruan did not say anything when she heard the servant's report. She was a filial daughter-in-law. Now that her father-in-law was resting, she naturally would not bother him with such a small matter. As for those who took the things, they were very nervous. They knew how much their grandfather loved their aunt. Now he was angry, but what if he regretted it? What would they do if he punished them later? However, the first Madame Ruan assured them that if anything really happened, she would bear the responsibility alone. As the saying goes, the law does not punish the majority. Their grandfather would never punish them. After lunch, Lu Chengdi sent someone to take Ruan Ruizhong's pulse and check his physical condition. After all, he was his right-hand man. Whether it was out of sincerity or just to save face, Lu Chengdi sent someone to take Ruan Ruizhong's pulse. The imperial physician took Ruan Ruizhong's pulse, but his heart skipped a beat. Why was he angry and depressed at the same time? There were also signs of a stroke. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look good. What had happened? However, no matter what happened, it had nothing to do with him. It was fine as long as he did his duty. He wrote a prescription, gave a few words of advice, and returned to report. Son, daughter-in-law, grandson, granddaughter-in-law, granddaughter, and great-grandson. A large group of people surrounded him and carefully served him. Although it was not as comfortable as Madame Wei serving him, looking at this large family with so many children and grandchildren, his heart was more or less relieved. However, thinking of what that lewd woman, Madame Wei, said, not only did she touch his son, she even had her eyes on his grandson. That little bit of relief instantly shattered into pieces. He looked at his children and grandchildren suspiciously, as if he wanted to see if they had an affair with Madame Wei from time to time. However, no matter how he looked, they still had a respectful and humble appearance. Get out, all of you get out. The first Madame Ruan originally wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Ruan Fangfei and test Ruan Ruizhong. However, seeing this scene, she swallowed the words back down. Because she heard that Ruan Ruizhong did not sleep well, she added a sedative medicine to the prescription. After Ruan Ruizhong drank the medicine, he became drowsy. He was basically in this state for the entire afternoon. No matter how chaotic and bloody the Ruan family was, the Luo family was full of laughter and laughter. It was probably really rare to be so happy. It could be said that this was the only day in their lives. They did not leave after lunch and continue to play. Even if they were covered in sweat, their usual chastity and virtuous appearance was completely gone. At most, they would make fun of each other. Not to mention, even if they were sworn enemies, they didn't seem to want to fight to the death at this time. It was not until the middle of the afternoon, when it was almost dusk, that someone began to say goodbye. Although they were reluctant to leave, it was indeed not early. It should be known that the previous banquets basically ended after lunch. Jingwan asked someone to bring water. Although it was not impossible to take a bath at this time, it was still possible to tidy up their appearance. At least when they went out, others would not be able to see anything wrong with their appearance. After tidying up, each and every one of them became a graceful noble lady. Some of them looked at each other and revealed a tacit smile. After sending off the last guest, Jingwan was also able to take a break. Although it was not very tiring, as the host, she had to look for this and that and accompany almost all of them. This was the first time this kind of situation had happened. Besides being at ease, she was also a little uncomfortable. She arranged for a bath early and let Mama Gong relax her muscles and bones. She felt that she was full of energy again. This banquet, it's better to hold less of it in the future. Mama Gong heard this and smiled lightly. That's what young lady did. Look at the banquets of other families. They are not as busy as young lady. This should be considered the first banquet Jingwan hosted after coming to the capital. It was obviously very successful. Actually, I had a lot of fun myself. Alas, the more I live, the more backward I am. Young lady, what are you talking about? You should be at the age to have fun. Isn't that so? I'm carefree all day and basically have nothing to do. Naturally, I'll have fun. Mama, I didn't have an afternoon nap today, so I'm a little sleepy. I'll take a nap now. Wake me up 15 minutes before dinner. As Jingwan spoke, she let out a small yawn. Her half-closed eyes overflowed with some physiological tears. Her pair of eyes were like limpid autumn waters and were especially seductive. Jingwan fell asleep very quickly. Mama Gong gently adjusted her sleeping position. If she slept with her arms pressed down, it would be uncomfortable for her to sleep for a long time. Mama Gong then covered her with a thin silk blanket before leaving. After that, Qingzhu came in with a round fan and fanned Jingwan unhurriedly. She was not in a hurry and made sure that there was a trace of cool breeze. The maidservant woke her up before dinner and asked her to drink some water to wake her up. After that, she would be fine after dinner. During this time, Sun Yijia came by once, but seeing that she was sleeping, she did not disturb her. After that, Jingwan did the same as usual. On the other hand, Luo Peishan began to be busy again because of the matters in the south. It seemed that he would not be able to sleep until later. Because they had been eating together recently, Jingwan overheard him talking about water conservancy. Jingwan did not know much about it. If she really wanted to talk about something, it would probably be about emergency rescue and post-disaster resettlement. She could still talk on paper based on the things she learned in her previous life. However, as far as she knew, the Qi Yuan dynasty, or to be more precise, the previous dynasty, had a set of perfect methods to deal with floods. Jingwan never underestimated the wisdom of these people. However, she could look back at it carefully. After all, it was more than thousands of years of accumulation. She should be able to list out some useful things. With regards to Li Hongyuan's second visit, Jingwan only raised her eyes to look at him, then closed them again and went back to sleep. Li Hongyuan's main purpose of coming tonight was to look for Luo Peishan. However, since he was already in the Luo family's territory, how could he not come to see Jingwan? He hugged her, kissed her, and rubbed her ears. He guessed that Luo Peishan had finished reading the things he wrote and thoroughly understood it. I have something to do tonight, so I won't accompany you. As if I want to be with you, Jingwan muttered in a low voice. Li Hongyuan smiled and kissed her forehead. Then I will go first. Jingwan watched him go out the door. In fact, her heart was still very slippery. No matter what, it was better to say something than not to say anything at all. She felt that everything she did was right and proper. Jingwan wouldn't let her imagination run wild now, but his attitude, at least, showed his respect. Luo Peishan was still carefully looking through the things Li Hongyuan wrote. His heart was full of admiration. Jin Qinhuang really wasn't simple. The things that the emperor didn't know about, he was clear about. And the things that everyone was still thinking about, he had already thought about all aspects, clearly organized, and the ideas were all implemented. Just as he was pondering over some places that could be added in some details, he inadvertently looked up and saw Li Hongyuan walk in. Just like the last time, he came in so quietly. Luo Peishan silently cursed. A dignified Qinhuang, being the gentleman on the beam, he didn't have the least bit of embarrassment. But since he wanted to come over, why did he need to let someone show him the booklet in advance? At this time, what could he be busy with? However, if he knew that Li Hongyuan took advantage of this time to break into his good granddaughter's room, who knows what kind of expression he would have? He got up and turned around from behind the desk. Greetings to Wang Ye. Dispense with the formalities. Li Hongyuan sat down at the side. Luo Darren has finished reading. What do you think? Is there anything you need to add? This was an old man. It wasn't like he was close to Wan. So naturally, he did business according to the rules and didn't say anything superfluous. Facing proper business, Luo Peishan also didn't hesitate and directly expressed his own opinions and views. The two people started to discuss this matter. As for the matter of serving tea and water, an E took over. As for Luo Peishan's manservant, he was still a little dazed because of Jin Qinhuang's visit in the middle of the night. It must be said that the last time Li Hongyuan visited Luo Peishan in the middle of the night, he directly made him faint. Because Li Hongyuan's writing was very comprehensive and detailed, there were very few places that needed to be added. Therefore, the discussion didn't take long, less than an hour. Luo Peishan's appreciation for Li Hongyuan rose to admiration. With this ability, if the other princes were to be pinched together, they would be far from being able to catch up. The way he handled matters was shrewd and ruthless, skillful, as if the universe was in his grasp. To say something disrespectful, even Luqing Emperor was far inferior. If this kind of person failed in the struggle for the throne, it simply didn't make sense. However, thinking of his reputation on the surface, it can be imagined how deeply this person hid. Li Hongyuan took a sip of tea. I will have to trouble Luo Darren with the rest. Luo Peishan pointed at the memorial. Wang Ye didn't think of submitting it yourself? Letting this official monopolize such a big merit? Li Hongyuan glanced at him. What merit does Ben Wang need? That's true. This world belongs to His Highness. So why would he care about this little bit of fame? Moreover, when His Highness handed over the memorial, His Majesty's first reaction would probably be to question whose credit His Highness had stolen. Then he would suspect His Highness's intentions. He wouldn't even think that his own son actually had this ability. Li Hongyuan declined to comment. He never wanted something like a false reputation. Rising, Ben Wang will take his leave. Luo Peishan hurriedly followed suit, respectfully sending off Wang Ye. When the study was quiet again, Luo Peishan's gaze once again fell on the memorial. After a moment, he sat down, opened the memorial that had been edited, and began to transcribe it. Tomorrow, he would present it to the emperor. His servant came in to refill his tea. Forget everything that happened tonight. Luo Peishan didn't raise his head, nor did his hands stop moving, but the servant understood and hurriedly responded. This matter wasn't a joke. Li Hongyuan went to the Ruan residence again. Perhaps he had a premonition, but he didn't rest. At the same time, he didn't leave anyone to serve him. The servants only thought that he had a knot in his heart and didn't say anything. After he got angry, they didn't dare to stay. Seeing Li Honyuan appear, Ruan Ruizong was surprised and surprised. However, in his heart, he felt that it was somewhat within his expectations. Greetings to Wang Ye. Li Honyuan calmly sat down, then casually said, "You may rise." After that, Li Honyuan didn't speak, and Ruan Ruizong stood with his hands hanging down. "Sit down. If you continue like this, people who don't know will think that Ben Wang is cold-blooded, punishing a frail old man to stand." Many thanks to Wang Ye. Ruan Ruizong ignored the other content in his words. "Doesn't the Grand Secretary want to say something to Ben Wang?" Li Honyuan supported his head with one hand, with a bit of leisure and laziness. Ruan Ruizong finally raised his head to look at him. "I can only say that Wang Ye is truly amazing, deceiving everyone." In reality, before, he had a lot to say about the mastermind behind this. The most important point was, since he knew about these things, why didn't he tell him in private? Why did he have to make the Ruan residence like this? Did he, Ruan Ruizong, offend him? That's right, he already thought that all of this might be the person Wei Shi spoke of. Seeing Li Honyuan, he didn't ask anything. According to this person's temperament and style of doing things, he might not tell you even if you asked. Even if he did, the answer might be, "I'm happy. Master, the person has been brought over." An Yi's voice sounded at the door. Soon after, Wei Shi, who was dressed in an exceptionally flirtatious and enchanting manner, walked in. That was an attire that Ruan Ruizong had never seen before. After a moment of amazement, her face was completely black like the bottom of a pot. Not only because after everything was torn apart, she became unscrupulous, but also because her eyes were staring straight at Jin Qinhuang. Wei Shi didn't even give Ruan Ruizong a glance, as she seductively greeted Li Honyuan. As expected, it is Wang Ye. To speak of Wang Ye's methods, Chunfu admires Wang Ye from the bottom of her heart. Li Honyuan looked at her lightly. "Your ability isn't that great, to be so easily ruined." Ben Wang originally thought that he would need to spend more energy. Wei Shi's deep feeling stiffened. Then she smiled flirtatiously. "Wang Ye is in the dark. Chunfu is in the light." Wang Ye knows Chunfu very well. Chunfu knows nothing about Wang Ye. Wang Ye acted suddenly. Chunfu was naturally caught unprepared. If there were precautions, the result might not be like this. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653235. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 206. You've been hiding in the capital for 10 to 20 years, so you should have understood the various powers, but you don't know anything about this prince. This isn't the first time something has happened to Ruan Fangfei. You should know that as Ruan Fangfei's biggest backer, how could this prince let you go? You didn't have enough preparation, but you said that this prince made a sudden move. Is this your ability? Madame Wei's face turned green and white for a moment, but she quickly smiled again. It's all because this subject's skills are inferior. Now that I've fallen into the prince's hands, I'll naturally be at his disposal. As she spoke, she winked at Li Honyuan. Ruan Ruizong was so angry that his veins were popping. No matter what, she was still his wife, but she was actually seducing another man in front of him. However, after hearing their conversation, he knew that this cheap woman had another identity, so he could only suppress his anger. Madame Wei continued, "Can this subject ask 2 questions, Prince? When did Prince notice this subject's wife? Why did you notice this subject's wife? It's reasonable to say that as a woman of the inner residence, you shouldn't be treated differently by Prince. You raised such a good daughter. Is it strange that this prince noticed you?" His eyes still didn't have the slightest emotion. Belittling someone might hurt, but to have nothing and be completely disregarded was even more uncomfortable for some people. The more arrogant an arrogant one was, the easier it was to become this kind of person. Madame Wei happened to be this kind of person, but she restrained herself very well, so outsiders couldn't see it. Madame Wei's lips moved. Indeed, her daughter had targeted this person from the beginning. Because of this person, she would implicate herself. What a simple connection. At that time, she still doted on Ruan Fangfei. Since her daughter had taken a fancy to him, then no matter who the other party was, it was the other party's honor. She had never given up on investigating the princes, especially after he was bestowed the title of prince. However, Li Honyuan hid too deeply and was too cautious in doing things. He didn't reveal any clues, so naturally, she didn't have the chance to find any clues. 1 year, 2 years, 4 years later, the results of the investigation on Li Honyuan remained the same. After all, she had limited energy and manpower. So she withdrew her investigation on Li Honyuan and allowed her daughter to get close to him. You've been investigating this prince for 4 years. If it wasn't for Ruan Fangfei, you probably would have been able to find some clues. Before the age of 16, Li Honyuan had been in the palace. At that time, Madame Wei had already taken root in the palace. Even if she had memories of her previous life, she had too little to do with Madame Wei. For no reason, Li Honyuan would not easily suspect her. If they knew that Li Honyuan was not a good-for-nothing, but a man-eating ferocious beast that was hibernating in the dark, not to mention letting Ruan Fangfei get close, they would definitely make her stay far away. After all, any young lady did not need a reason to stay away from the King of Hell. Then again, Ruan Fangfei had fallen in love with Li Honyuan when she was young. She allowed her to get close to him as a means to test him. If she really had that ambition, how could she not be tempted in the face of the power of the cabinet chief? Therefore, this was actually an unsolvable situation. The Wei clan had lost miserably because of a single move. Prince is wise and mighty. This subject is ashamed of her inferiority. Speaking of which, to deal with a person like this subject, the sooner you make your move, the better. However, Prince has delayed for a few years. Why is that? It was really tiring to deal with people who did not act according to common sense. Because your daughter is very useful and your threat is within a controllable range. This prince does not mind keeping valuable things. Would Li Honyuan tell her? Naturally not. Other people were not qualified to know about Jingwan's matters. Speaking of which, Ruan Fangfei had told her about Jingwan's matters, but she did not believe it at all and had long thrown it to the back of her mind. Now, she did not connect it at all, other than accidentally. Who would think of this kind of truth? Even if Ruan Fangfei had guessed it, and Li Honyuan had personally admitted it, would she really believe it? Most likely, she would think that Li Honyuan was deliberately angering her. Rational people would pay attention to evidence and reason. Luo Peishan and old Madame Luo easily believed Li Hongyuan's words because they were emotional, and thought that Jingwan could be fancied by anyone. Seeing that Li Honyuan did not continue to speak, the Wei clan maintained her seductive attitude. Then now, how does Prince plan to deal with this subject? This subject has heard that there is a mother and daughter in Prince's courtyard in the capital. Although she was defeated, she still admires Prince. I don't know if she would have the honor to serve Prince. She will definitely let Prince experience what is called happiness in the world. Her body seemed to be slightly rubbing and twisting slightly. She even stuck out her tongue and licked her red lips. It was extremely seductive. Wei clan had learned the art of seduction. Of course, it was just some small movements of her body and some external small things such as aphrodisiac and the like that made people feel that she was more attractive than ordinary people. In addition, she had learned the art of sleeping. Generally, the men who touched her always felt that they could be happier with her than with other women. Therefore, without a bit of willpower, it was really difficult to get rid of her. Ruan Ruizhong's sons fell for her probably because of this reason. Coupled with the taboo against morality, it made them, who had released their hearts, even more unable to give up. Wei clan was a person with a strong desire. She had never wronged herself. When Ruan Ruizhong couldn't satisfy her, it was natural for her to have an affair. The reason why she didn't use similar methods on Ruan Ruizhong was that she was worried that he was a little old. If she used too much of his body, he would die young. Then, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. After all, Ruan Ruizhong had a promising future. When she first married him, he had the possibility of becoming the cabinet chief. Such a person could be squeezed out a lot of useful things. However, this man was very conceited. She could achieve her goal without using seduction to keep him. Therefore, in front of him, she was happy to be a good wife and mother. She was now seducing Li Hongyuan. She was confident that as long as she pulled Li Hongyuan to bed, not only could she save her life, but she could also get something that she didn't even dare to think about before. At Ruan Ruizhong's age, he basically didn't have any desire, so Wei Clan's seduction wouldn't work on him. However, they were still husband and wife in name. She dared to be so brazen and not put him in her eyes. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and slammed the table. "Slut, you have big guts." At this time, she still called herself this official's wife. Was she trying to make him feel disgusted? "Your Highness, you also saw it. This woman is so wanton and dirty. If your Highness touches her, wouldn't you dirty yourself? This official will have someone drown her right now to prevent her from harming others." Wei Clan didn't take Ruan Ruizhong seriously at all. Her attention was always on Li Hongyuan. Step by step, she approached. The closer she got, the more excited she became. Such a handsome, strong, and capable man aroused her unprecedented desire to conquer. It was a drug that only worked on men, but it seemed to have affected her. At this moment, Madame Wei really looked like a bitch in heat. Luo Peishan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. No matter what, he couldn't let this lewd woman enter Jin Qinhuang's eyes. Otherwise, according to Jin Qinhuang's usual style, he wouldn't be able to clean up this woman who brought him extraordinary shame and humiliation. If he had known earlier, he would have killed her from the start. He hurriedly stepped forward and tried to pull away the woman's carriage that was already close to Jin Qinhuang. Faster than words could tell, Li Hongyuan, who was sitting still, suddenly kicked. First, it was her calf. Taking advantage of her body falling forward uncontrollably, he kicked straight for her heart without mercy. Wei Clan, whose hand had already reached out to her, flew backwards and fell to the ground. Wei Clan spat out a mouthful of blood. She felt that her lungs seemed to have shifted. Wei Clan's martial arts weren't weak, but in the end, she was restricted by her identity. She couldn't brazenly practice martial arts. In this matter, if she didn't advance, she would fall back. Because compared to Li Hongyuan, she was still lacking a lot. It was difficult to avoid. Ruan Ruizhong was stunned on the spot. Things happened in a flash. He didn't seem to have reacted to what had happened, and the scene had already become like this. He looked at the woman who was vomiting blood on the ground, and then looked at Li Hongyuan, who didn't seem to have done anything. Suddenly, he flung his sleeves and sat back down. When he cared about you, he would hold you like a pearl or a treasure. When he hated you, the more miserable you were, the more delightful it was to watch. When Ruan Ruizhong married her, he was already over 50 years old. He had already passed the age of admiring someone. Therefore, Ruan Ruizhong cared more about other things than love. As a result, it was very easy to harden his heart. Wei Clan's chest was burning with pain, but she stubbornly looked at Li Hongyuan. Just now, he kept looking at her. She thought that he was just like other men. As long as she used a little trick, she could easily make him fall in love with her. But now, after looking carefully, she found that his gaze was frighteningly clear. There wasn't the slightest bit of desire. It could be seen that the medicine she prepared didn't work. He looked at her like he was looking at a clown. Her actions, in his eyes, were like listening to a funny joke. Wei Clan's gaze lowered. She couldn't help but cough twice, which made her heart feel even more uncomfortable. When she raised her head again, her gaze was even more heated. It was a naked desire to conquer, as expected of the man who secretly controls the universe. How can I use ordinary methods to deal with you? That's simply an insult to you. Ruan Fangfei is indeed your child. You seduced another man in front of your husband. Ruan Fangfei, as an unmarried woman, dared to undress and recommend herself to a man. It's simply the brothel's loss that she didn't live in it. Before she was disfigured, this prince didn't even look at her. Someone like you, huh? Wei Clan's madam didn't care at all as she wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. In terms of serving men, even if there were 10 of them, they still wouldn't be able to compare to this subject's hands and mouth, let alone other things. However, Fangfei admires you. Those in the know all thought that Fangfei was blind, but it turns out that her taste is very good. Whether it was derogatory or complimentary, Li Hongyuan's emotions didn't fluctuate at all. Li Hongyuan turned to look at Ruan Ruizong and said with interest, "Did the Grand Secretary suffer 8 lifetimes of bad luck to meet this mother and daughter pair? Being played in circles and deceived so miserably, what thoughts do you have?" This prince originally thought that when you learned the truth, you would probably die. Looking at your current situation, it seems that your endurance isn't bad. Ruan Ruizhong's face was ashen. Even if he knew that Li Hongyuan wasn't good for nothing, he still couldn't change his opinion of him. He was too sinister, always rubbing salt on other people's wounds, but he couldn't do anything to him. How exactly does Wang Yi want to deal with this woman, and who exactly is she? A woman who shares a bed with you. You're asking this prince who she is. Ruan Ruizhong felt like a fishbone was stuck in his throat. After a while, he struggled to open his mouth. This subject is ignorant. Wang Yi, please do not be stingy with your guidance. For Ruan Ruizhong to admit that he was ignorant, it still required a bit of courage. At the very least, it wasn't easy to cross that hurdle in his heart. But thinking about his current situation, it seemed that there was nothing he couldn't admit. Since the Grand Secretary is so sincere, this prince naturally won't be stingy. Bring it in. An E came in from outside and handed a flat box with a lock to Ruan Ruizhong. Right now, Ruan Ruizhong didn't have much leeway to think. Regardless of whether the things inside were something he could see or not, Weisher was now a thorn in his flesh. If he didn't get rid of it, he wouldn't be happy. If Jin Qinhuang didn't personally tell him, even if he saw these things, it was possible for Jin Qinhuang to hold them tightly in the palm of his hand. He wouldn't turn back. The key was on top. Ruan Ruizhong took some time to open it because his hands were trembling. Not only was there a physical problem, there was also a psychological factor. Even if he didn't turn back, he was worried that he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Ruan Ruizhong took out the things inside. It was a stack of letters. Ruan Ruizhong started to read from the first one. There were more and less contents. Ruan Ruizhong read faster and faster, and his hands trembled faster and faster. After reading less than half, he couldn't read anymore. His hands loosened, and the things scattered on the ground. The family is unfortunate. The family is unfortunate. Ruan Ruizhong's expression was dejected, and then tears flowed down his old face. And Weisher, who was lying on the ground and couldn't get up, naturally saw part of the contents of the letters. Her pupils shrunk, and she couldn't help but clench her fists. Because the letters were all the same, she was able to determine at first glance that these were all copies and not originals. But her basis was only the letters. It could be seen that whether it was the handwriting or the special symbols and seals, they were all exactly the same. But just this alone was enough to make her heart jump. She knew that Jin Qinhuang had a lot of her things, but in her view, there shouldn't be anything wrong with the information that she sent out. Now it seemed that what was called nothing wrong, it was obviously something that was extremely wrong. She sent it out, but it was all under the eyes of others. The reason why there was no mistake was because the other party didn't stop her. Crawling forward on her stomach, she pulled open the letter. Mainly looking at the date on it, the earliest was more than 4 years ago. It was about the time when Ruan Fangfei dealt with Li Hongyuan's fiancée. Wang Yi's method is good. You sent out the information through different channels. At the beginning, It wasn't all intercepted. This situation lasted for about 3 months. With regards to Wei Shi's praise, Li Honyuan seemed to be a little dissatisfied with his own results. Wei Shi coughed twice. No matter what kind of Jin Qinhuang was, this infuriating nature still didn't change. The Ruan family wasn't an aristocratic family. In terms of background, perhaps it couldn't be compared to the Luo family. But they had served the country since the founding of Qi Yuan. When it came to Ruan Ruizong, it could be said that they had reached their peak. The Ruan family was loyal to the emperor and loved the country. Ruan Ruizong took the country as his own responsibility. Who knew how many times the people who slept with him had made him wear a green hat? His daughter wasn't his own. These matters in the present were already insignificant. He slid down to kneel on the ground. Wang Ye, this official is guilty. This official is guilty and deserves 10,000 deaths. You want to ask for forgiveness, but the target shouldn't be Ben Wang. Ruan Ruizhong's body stiffened slightly. This official is willing to serve Wang Ye like a dog and horse, asking Wang Ye to give me a way out. More than half of the information on those letters had passed through his hands. Although they had been stolen by Wei Shi was his legal wife. They had shared the same bed for 2 years. If he said that he knew nothing about her actions, not to mention outsiders, he would not believe it. In other people's shoes, he would not believe it either. Once this matter was exposed, he wouldn't be able to escape the crime of treason with the enemy. That was a great crime that involved the confiscation of his property and the extermination of his family. Therefore, his personal honor and disgrace were really not worth mentioning. After the heaviest blow, Ruan Ruizong became abnormally clear-headed. His muddled brain started to work again. The current situation absolutely didn't allow him to be unable to recover. If he didn't think of a way to reverse the situation, he would be the biggest sinner of the Ruan family. In the future, when he went underground, what would he use to face his ancestors? No matter how stupid he was, he should know the true face of this Jin Qinhuang. He had long known about the matter, but concealed it. He knew the whole story from beginning to end. Then everything still had room to maneuver. From beginning to end, he was neutral and unwilling to take sides because he didn't really think highly of that prince. Now he only knew the tip of the iceberg of Jin Qinhuang's unknown side, but it let him see the potential of ascending to the throne. In addition, he had grasped his own fatal weakness. The right time, the right place, and the right people were all present. Then there was nothing to assist him. Ruan Ruizong, Ben Wang acknowledges your ability. But someone like you who is about to lie in the coffin, who knows when you will really lie in the coffin? Is it worth the lives of the entire Ruan family? There are so many capable people with lofty ideals in the world. Ruan Ruizong was silent. He knew that what Li Honyuan said was true. Not to mention others, even among the officials in the court, there were many who secretly pledged their allegiance to him and worked for him. Other people aside, his recent archenemy, Luo Peishan, was certainly already helping him. Jin Qinhuang was his future grandson-in-law. Helping him was a matter of course. The lives of this official's entire family, in Wang Ye's eyes, are like ants. But to this official, it is as important as 10,000 caddies, even more important than life. Wang Ye is currently in a period of dormancy. Rather than borrowing other people's hands to report this matter to His Majesty, it is better to be magnanimous and let off a group of ants. This official will not hesitate to die 10,000 times for Wang Ye. Although Wang Ye can find countless people to work for him, once the position of the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet is vacant, there will be a scramble from all sides. Even if the person who finally sits in this position is Wang Ye's loyal follower, not to mention that there will be a lot of incidents in the process. To adapt to this position and handle things with ease, there will also be a process. In addition, the other 3 people in the cabinet all have their own standpoints. Wanting to sit in this position is not easy. It is better to do it like it is now. For Wang Ye, there is no loss, and it also reduces unnecessary trouble and possible unforeseen events. It is said that the Grand Secretary is a capable person. It can be seen that not only is he good at handling political affairs, his skill in flattery is also not bad. Although from the beginning he intended to keep Ruan Ruizong, no matter what, the other party had to rush to beg for it, and not him revealing his trump card and letting Ruan Ruizong take the initiative. Moreover, in the current Ruan family, the bad reputation brought by Ruan Fangfei, it was not impossible to wash it clean. In the previous life, everything was exposed. Li Hongyuan now saved his old face and also saved the lives of the entire family. Look, he was so benevolent. Your Highness praises me too much, Ruan Ruizong said without changing his expression. Therefore, as a qualified scholar official, what he cared about the most would always be the family. When everything else did not go against this principle, he could pamper, love, and hold it. But once it went against this principle, everything else could be abandoned. Dignity, reputation, life, everything else could also turn a soft bone into a hard bone. Ruan Ruizhong's current state was also within Li Hongyuan's expectations. Because of Ruan Fangfei, because of Madame Wei, the blows to him were small. As long as he did not die, the probability of him standing up in the end was more than 90%. Keeping you can indeed save a lot of trouble. Li Hongyuan was not afraid of trouble, but if he could save it, he would save it. Because that would consume more of his energy, he was more willing to use this energy on Wan. The joy in Ruan Ruizhong's eyes disappeared in a flash. Many thanks, Your Highness. Dare I ask, Your Highness, how should we deal with Madame Wei? This question was purely a matter of business, and did not contain any personal feelings, but one could tell from the way he addressed Ruan Ruizhong. Keep her. She knows your body the best. Let her continue to nurse your body. You have to live a few more years so that this prince will not lose money in this deal. If she dies, the people behind her will be alarmed. It is difficult to guarantee that they will not send someone else. Instead of sending someone else, it is better to hold the ready-made one in our hands and let her pass on some things that this prince wants her to pass on. Your Highness is right. Ruan Ruizhong nodded. It seemed that he did not feel uncomfortable keeping such a woman by his side. Another characteristic of scholar officials was that they could bend and stretch to achieve their goals. Under Li Hongyuan's signal, Anjiu came in, pinched Madame Wei's chin, and quickly stuffed a pill into her mouth. Even if he kept her, he had to minimize her threat. From now on, not to mention martial arts, she would become a slender and weak, ordinary woman of the inner residence, who would pant after walking a few steps. Every day that Ruan Ruizhong dies is a day that you can live. For the sake of her family's life, Madame Wei would do her best to nurse Ruan Ruizhong's body. Take these letters and read them carefully. With Ruan Daren's intelligence, it should not be difficult to find out who is behind her. Ruan Ruizhong, this woman is with you. If anything happens, don't blame this prince for settling old and new debts. Your Highness, please rest assured. It was said that one would learn from one's mistakes. Ruan Ruizhong had suffered such a big loss. If he still could not control Madame Wei, who had lost her wings, he would have lived for decades in vain. After returning to the capital, this prince will arrange a few people for you. That is the most appropriate. Ruan Ruizhong nodded in agreement without saying anything else. This night had also wasted a lot of time. Li Hongyuan prepared to leave. This subject has one more thing to ask Your Highness. This subject asked Your Highness to stay for a while longer. Speak. In recent days, this subject seems to have offended Luo Daran in some way, but this subject is completely unaware. This subject is the head of the cabinet, and Luo Daran is the head of the 6 ministries. If this subject and Luo Daran do not see eye to eye for a long time, I'm afraid that there will be more incidents, therefore. Li Hongyuan raised his hand to interrupt him. On the day of the Dragon Boat Festival, Ruan Fangfei secretly drugged Benwang's fiancée, causing her to have a slippery pulse for a short period of time. Say, where did your enmity come from? Ruan Ruizhong immediately understood the inner workings of the situation. Don't say that Luo Peishan was only verbally provoking him. If it was someone else, they would have rolled up their sleeves and beaten him up. It's this subject's fault. This subject will definitely find an opportunity to apologize to him. As Ruan Ruizhong spoke, he discovered that Jin Qinhuang, who had always been indifferent, actually had a malicious look in his eyes, which coincided with the him in the rumors. He was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. That powerless Jin Qinhuang, even if he was malicious and ruthless, wouldn't let these old officials care about him. Now that he thought about it, it was really the ignorant who had no fear. He was also glad that Jin Qinhuang didn't really want to take someone's life at the slightest disagreement. Otherwise, who knows how many people would die in court without knowing why. Jin Qinhuang had that ability. Hearing that Jin Qinhuang cared about his current fiancée, he couldn't be blamed for tidying up that vile spawn. He wasn't just deceived by Weishur. That vile spawn pretended to be filial and well-behaved in front of him. Wasn't that also deceiving him? Let's not talk about the matter of her shamelessly recommending herself to the pillow. Let's not talk about her repeatedly scheming against Ben Wang's previous fiancés. As for drugging and sending her to a man's bed, that's a small matter. How many people she killed in your Ruan family's backyard, and how she had intimate relations with her cousin in private, it has nothing to do with Ben Wang. Touching Ben Wang's current fiancé, she deserves to die 10,000 deaths. But to let her die like this is rather letting her off too easily. Tomorrow, send her to Zhong Qinhuang's hands. In any case, she's not your seed. In the future, just treat it as if this person had never appeared in the Ruan family. Although he already loathed Ruan Fangfei to the extreme, but hearing her conduct and deeds, such a poisonous heart, just like her mother, he still felt like a mouthful of old blood was stuck in his throat. It was unbearable. His illustrious reputation was in vain. How could he be so blind when it came to this pair of mother and daughter? Such a person, it was no wonder that Jin Qinhuang was so disgusted. I will follow Wang Ye's instructions. Li Hongyuan was unhappy. So naturally, he would make others unhappy as well. He had always understood the essence of it. Now that Ruan Ruizhong happened to bump into the muzzle of the gun, he could only be unlucky. After sending off Li Hongyuan, when Ruan Ruizhong faced Weishur again, he retreated with modesty. With a cold and stern face, he condescendingly looked at Weishur, who had become even weaker after taking Anjio's medicine. It was this woman who made him wear a green hat, seduced his son, and almost harmed the lives of his entire clan. He really hated that he couldn't dismember her body into 10,000 pieces, but Jin Qinhuang said that he wanted to keep her. He also felt that killing her wouldn't resolve his hatred. He boasted of being a gentleman and wouldn't be rough with women, but his face had long been trampled into the mud by this woman. Thus, why should he be polite to her? Didn't they say that he was old and couldn't satisfy her? In the future, he would find a way to satisfy her. Naturally, he wouldn't joke around with his own body. However, it would be too easy to find something to replace it. Before Weishur was injured, before she took that medicine, she didn't fear Ruan Ruizhong at all. But now, she knew that she was in a weak position. There was no possibility of resistance. When there was nothing to rely on, she naturally couldn't stop the fear in her heart. She shrunk her body. Laoi. When he saw her take out her previous gentle and caring appearance, there would be no more tenderness in his heart, only disgust and disgust. He crouched down and grabbed Weishur's hair. Don't worry, let's take it slow. Weishur was terrified. She had never seen this kind of Ruan Ruizhong. She couldn't help but think of the person who had trained her. That was a memory that she never wanted to recall. Even after more than 20 years, when she thought of it, she would still tremble. Madame Wei probably didn't know that she was gradually creating an old pervert who was becoming more and more humble on the outside and more tactful when dealing with matters. Of course, it was an honor that she was the only one who could see his inner side. Ruan Ruizhong wanted to pull her away, but Weishur had only become weaker, not thinner. His current body wasn't very good, so he really didn't have the strength to pull her away. Get lost. He kicked her with his foot. As a prisoner, Weishur was very sensible and moved to the side. Ruan Ruizhong picked up the letters on the ground one by one. His movements were quite solemn. He made sure that he found every letter. He was even worried that Weisher had secretly hidden them when they weren't paying attention, and even took off her clothes. Probably because his mentality was different, Ruan Ruizhong was especially serious when he looked at these letters. He couldn't help but think. There were some things that he didn't even know about. Then he found a few unusual contents. They should have been sent to her by the person behind Weisher. With these, he really found some clues. With this kind of method, they intended to take over Qi Yuan's empire. Did they think that there was no one in Qi Yuan? However, Ruan Ruizhong was also clear that it was impossible to send only one spy. Since Jin Qinhuang could find Weisher, then those who had the slightest connection with Weisher wouldn't be able to escape from his hands. The others might be another Weisher. Qi Yuan had been peaceful in recent years, so Ruan Ruizhong wasn't too worried. This night, half of it had passed. After that, it was peaceful. The next day, Ruan de Furin was summoned by her father-in-law. It was said that the old Furin was sick and asked her to send 2 people to take care of her. The main courtyard couldn't be left unattended, so she also made arrangements. Ruan de Furin was a little shocked at first. Could it be that her father-in-law was really coaxed by that slut? But she didn't dare to say more. She twisted her handkerchief and respectfully responded. Then she personally led people to the main courtyard. The originally locked door was already opened. But when Ruan de Furin saw the dying Weisher on the bed, she was finally relieved. It didn't look like she had coaxed the man back. But why did she still have to be served with good food and drink? But before she could make arrangements here, Ruan Ruizhong came to find her again. But it wasn't in the front courtyard, but at Ruan Fangfei's place. Her heart thumped again. She hadn't had time to tell her father-in-law that she had searched Ruan Fangfei's courtyard. If he saw Ruan Fangfei's miserable appearance, perhaps his heart would soften when she cried. In that case, the ones who would suffer would be them. She hurried over. Ruan Fangfei didn't have anyone to clean her up. She still looked the same as yesterday. And since then, she didn't eat anything. Her entire person looked miserable, sobbing softly. Unfortunately, the scar on her face was too ugly and couldn't be covered. Even if she cried like a pear blossom in the rain, there was no beauty. Ruan Fangfei cried while secretly glancing at Ruan Ruizhong. In the end, she saw that he was indifferent. His face was full of indifference. Her heart was completely cold. Who could tell her what was going on? Why did this old thing turn hostile so thoroughly? Madame Ruan let out a sigh of relief. Father, what orders do you have? Ruan Ruizhong glanced at her. He knew who did this in this courtyard. Don't do it again. Eldest daughter-in-law, remember, there are some things that I don't like people to make decisions on their own. Daughter-in-law will remember. Madame Ruan hurriedly replied. But she should have passed this hurdle. She originally thought that her father-in-law was very kind, but now she felt that he was a bit frightening. Was it because he was hurt too badly? Help her wash up and change her clothes. Then send her to Prince Zhong's courtyard. In the future, she will live as Prince Zhong's person and die as Prince Zhong's soul. She will have nothing to do with the Ruan family. After speaking, he didn't even look at Ruan Fangfei and left. Ruan Fangfei forgot to cry. She widened her eyes in disbelief. When she came back to her senses, she immediately chased after him. Father, Madame Ruan immediately had people catch her. Her father-in-law even said such words. It could be seen that this lowly child was completely finished. Why aren't you bringing the girl back to wash up? What a scandal to be shouting like this. Father, don't go. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your daughter. Didn't you say that I'm the apple of your eye? How can you be so heartless in the blink of an eye? Madame Ruan sneered. Daughter? Apple of his eye? These words, if her father-in-law heard it now, he would feel that it was incomparably thorny. Shut her mouth for me. Then, Ruan Fangfei could only make muffled sounds. Madame Ruan patted her face. Save it. When you reach Prince Zhong's place, You still need a lot of strength to deal with him. Ruan Fong Fei's gaze was as if she wanted to eat her alive. Madame Ruan didn't feel any pain or itch. She moved closer to her. Do you want to know why your father-in-law did this? Let me tell you. It's because you're not your father-in-law's child. I don't know which man your wall-climbing mother is pregnant with. She's also a bastard child. Ruan Fong Fei's pupil shrank, but she quickly calmed down and stopped struggling. Madame Ruan smiled sarcastically. You believe it? It seems that you know very well what kind of person your mother is. After all, she was going to give her to Prince Zheng. The clothes given to her were not bad, but it was the last piece of clothing and the last few pieces of jewelry used on her. Madame Ruan wouldn't be reluctant to part with this. It should be known that the dowry originally prepared for her was not much less than that of the only legitimate daughter of Duke Ding. Now it was all saved. Perhaps because she knew that she no longer had a foothold in this family. Ruan Fong Fei was quiet. But before getting on the carriage, Ruan Fong Fei suddenly turned back and looked at Madame Ruan with malice. I'm not that old dog's biological child. Maybe I'm your daughter in name. Madame Ruan was so angry that her whole body trembled. This damned be ****. Ruan Fong Fei laughed very happily. You tell that old thing that things won't end like this. The matter of him being a cuckold and his son having an affair with his wife, I will definitely let the world know. Why haven't you blocked her mouth for me? Even so, Madame Ruan still felt that she couldn't send her away like this. So she ordered people to watch Ruan Fong Fei. She hurriedly went to see Ruan Ruizhong. Of course, she didn't dare to say the original words. She just tactfully mentioned it. According to her, he would become mute, unable to speak, unable to write, and unable to speak. No need. The more she did, the more she wanted to cover it up. Since Prince Jin wanted to send her to Prince Zheng, that side should have been taken care of. Prince Jin wanted to use him. Naturally, he wouldn't allow anyone to completely ruin his reputation. Also, if someone really wanted to know something, even if they couldn't speak or write, there were so many people in the world who could read lips. Since he said so, Madame Ruan felt that it was inappropriate and could only do as he said. Ruan Ruizhong was also not in a hurry to go to Lu Chengdi's place. The matter of the flood in the south, without him, it would be fine. Thus, it was better to take advantage of this time to take care of his body. The body was his capital. He couldn't wait until he returned to the capital for Lu Chengdi to really fire him. Although Li Hongyuan had a fatal handle on him, Ruan Ruizhong's heart was at ease. At least, he was very clear about what he wanted to do. He didn't need to worry and be distracted by messy things. But there was one more thing. His sons were all brought to the front. He didn't care about his old face now and directly made it clear to them. No matter if they had an affair with that cheap woman or not, they had to cut off all thoughts. This time, he could not pursue it. In the future, they would honestly work and live their lives. They were not allowed to take another concubine. If they violated this, they would first be punished according to the family law, and then be directly removed from the clan. No matter who it was, they would not be tolerated. Scram. No matter how old they were, no matter what position they sat in the face of the thunderous rage of their father, they were like quails shrinking their heads. Then they dejectedly scram. Standing outside the door, they looked at each other, and without saying a word, they went their separate ways. Thus, while Ruan Ruizhong was peacefully recuperating, Lu Chengdi and the others were busy. Following the reports that were sent one after another, it could be seen that the flood this time was not far from the truth. Moreover, it might be more serious than expected. However, because his heart was still somewhat confident, Lu Chengdi was not in a hurry and methodically issued decrees to the local government. According to Lu Chengdi's words, Luo Peishan had made great contributions this time. In addition to Li Hongyuan's secret help, Luo Peishan had basically understood all the officials in the Qi Yuan, not only through the files of the Ministry of Personnel, but also through the secret files that Jin Qinhuang had someone give him. The local officials who could be put in important positions were not 100% accurate. but there was at least 70% to 80% accurate. As long as these people were in position, there would basically be no major mistakes. What made people happy was that there were quite a few of these people in their respective positions. Lu Qingdi felt that he was wise, and when Rui Qinhuang, Gong Qinhuang, and the others found out that there were some of their people, they were secretly happy. Even Ding Guogong wrote a letter to be sent back to the capital to be presented to the Empress. He wanted to see if she could make another move in the capital. Who would have thought that those people were only arranged by Li Honyuan 1 or 2 years ago, or even 3 or 4 years ago? Methodically dealing with these matters, the people who went to the western border also sent back news that the matter was basically investigated. The countermeasures discussed by all parties had basically come to a conclusion. And this year, the 3 people who passed the Jinshi examination, as well as Sun Bingbai, all performed very well. They were all talents with potential. Jiu Wangye humbly bowed in person. These were the blessings of the Qi Yuan. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653239. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikugo mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 207. How beautiful and festive would it be after it was lit up? The younger children of the Luo family were playing in the courtyard with lanterns in their hands. At this time, no one would talk to them about etiquette. In fact, the children of the Luo family were not so strict. As for the other masters of the Luo family, they were scattered all over the courtyard, leisurely eating snacks and chatting. It was rare for the whole family to be so free. Jingwan leaned her body slightly and rested her elbows on the table to support her cheeks. Her expression was calm and relaxed as her eyes swept over the lanterns in the hands of her younger siblings. Not to mention those extremely beautiful paper bamboo lanterns. There were also very simple grapefruit lanterns, pumpkin lanterns, watermelon lanterns, orange lanterns, apple lanterns, and so on. The grapefruit lanterns were made by hollowing out the grapefruit and removing the inner white layer, leaving only a thin layer. Various vivid and exquisite patterns were carved on the grapefruit and tied with a string and lit with candles. The other lanterns were basically done in the same way. Most of these lanterns were made by ordinary families who did not have the money to buy lanterns for their children. It was unknown when it had become popular among the wealthy families, but the craftsmanship was more exquisite. It was just that the heart was removed, and the carvings on the outer shell were still the most common. There were those who were skillful enough to make lanterns that were comparable to lanterns. However, the Luo family's lanterns did not change their original appearance this time. They simply worked on the outer layer. Jing Wan had taken a closer look at the lanterns and was impressed by the craftsmen. If it was in her previous life, these craftsmen would be considered master craftsmen. However, in the current world, craftsmen of this level were too common. Every household had their own craftsman. Jing Wan saw an oversized wax gourd lantern. It had the most common cylindrical shape, but the head was a little too big. It was more than a meter long and thick. An adult probably wouldn't be able to carry it. Jing Wan was a little surprised. Even in her previous life, it was rare to see such a big winter melon, right? Even though the lantern was placed horizontally, the shape of the winter melon did not change at all. It was enough to show that the flesh of the melon was still quite thick. A 10-year-old boy was still struggling to carry it. It attracted not only Jing Wan's attention, but the other children also gathered around. Even the adults would say a few words to the wax gourd lamp. Children were very curious about strange things. With this curiosity, they naturally wanted to take it for themselves. The older ones would probably look at it eagerly, but the younger ones did not know how to restrain themselves and directly reached out to snatch it. As a result, it was no surprise that a battle for the winter melon lantern broke out. A group of little kids started to fight, but the older ones knew their limits. In addition, there were servants watching from the side. When they really got angry, they would pull them apart at the first moment. Then, the others would happily watch the show. Jingwan was speechless for a moment. She saw that their respective parents were all in high spirits. Speaking of which, when she was in Qian Prefecture, such a situation had never occurred. Could it be that this was a more popular way of loving each other? The end result was the death of the winter melon lantern. After it became a lantern. Before it was lit, there was a deafening cry. The juice from the spoiled winter melon made the little kids dirty. In the process of fighting, their hair was messed up and their clothes were scattered. It was a miserable sight. As if they had seen enough, the head of the household, Luo Peishan, waved his hand. Okay, all the children in each branch took them back to wash up and change clothes. Don't think that just because you seem to be calm from the beginning to the end, no one noticed your evil nature. You old bastard. After the initial shock, Sunny Jia could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. She looked very relaxed and happy. This kind of thing would never happen in Dukdingwa's prefecture. If it was really a fight between children, the adults behind them could make a scene. The most disgusting thing was not necessarily out of sincere protection of their children. The children's injuries and cries were all bargaining chips. They might even deliberately magnify the bargaining chips. When the little kids returned one by one, they were clean and had innocent smiles on their faces again. The servants had already brought all kinds of food and wine to them one after another. Night began to fall, and the lanterns in the courtyard were lit one by one. From all directions, the lanterns lit up one by one. Jingwan felt that the feeling was a little strange, and after all the lanterns were lit up, it was as she had expected, unusually beautiful. Looking at the sky again, although it was not completely dark yet, the full moon was already hanging in the sky, and the stars were scattered in the sky. There were no dark clouds in the sky, and one could imagine that tonight would be a very good night to admire the full moon. When the sky was completely dark, a large incense table was set up in the courtyard. On the table were fruits, snacks, and other offerings. Among them, mooncakes and watermelons were absolutely indispensable. The watermelons had to be cut into the shape of a lotus. The mooncakes on the incense burner table were bestowed by Emperor Lu Qingdi. Of course, there was also a specially made reunion mooncake, which was quite big. Under the moonlight, the statue of the moon god was placed in the direction of the moon. The red candles were lit high. With Madame Luo taking the lead, the women of the family took turns to worship. That's right, only the women participated. The men from old to young obediently watched from the side. As the saying went, men don't worship the moon, women don't worship the kitchen stove. The moon belonged to the moon. The moon god Chang'e was a woman, so only the women could worship the moon. If a man kowtowed humbly, it was a sign that he had bad intentions. Correspondingly, according to the folklore, the kitchen god was the incarnation of a mythical figure like Emperor Yan or Zhurong. In the dynasty, men and women should not touch each other. Therefore, it was against etiquette for women to worship him. What the hell was this? Jingwan could only laugh at this in her heart. After worshipping the moon, Madame Luo cut open the reunion mooncakes. The number of people in Luo Peishan's family, including the eldest grandson of the first branch, had to be cut. Speaking of which, Luo Peishan's family was all in the capital. If it was in the past, with Madame Wang as the chief knife, she would also have to include those in Qian Prefecture. Since Jingwan and the others were in Qian Prefecture, they would have to include those in the capital. However, every time this happened, Luo Peishan would always mention something about his second brother, the Luo second master, who had been a great scholar for 20 years and had students all over the world. Cutting mooncakes was a technical job. Every piece had to be the same size. However, this did not seem to be a difficult task for Madame Luo. Although the speed was a bit slow, the final result was gratifying. Everyone present took a piece, and the rest were placed on the incense table. The family ate happily, but there were also those who felt sour in their hearts. For example, the concubines of each branch were allowed to come out and gather together today. However, whether it was worshipping or mooncakes, they did not have a share. Then, there was another person who felt awkward. That was the Gu family. It seemed reasonable that Madame Luo did not prepare a share for them. However, the treatment that they received was the same as the concubines of the Luo family. Wasn't it after finishing the small piece of mooncake, everyone sat down and began to eat dinner? Of course, this was not a simple evening. Games, moon appreciation, dinner, these three were one. Of course, the games were more artistic, such as riddles, couplets, and connecting dragons. There was no reward for correct answers. If they did not connect, they would have to drink as punishment. Osmanthus went on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, looking up at the moon and smelling the scent of osmanthus, drinking a cup of osmanthus wine, celebrating the sweetness of the family, was no less than a great enjoyment. This year's osmanthus wine seems to be a bit different. Why does it feel better than the previous years? Luo Shangshu carefully recalled the taste. Father may not know, but this wine was sent by Jin Qin Wang a few years ago. Luo Rongwen said, "It must be said that this Mid-Autumn Festival gift was something that all relatives and friends had to prepare. It was just that Jin Qin Wang's generosity was a bit big. Just what he sent was probably equal to the sum of everyone else's. Because Wang Shi was in charge of the family, the gift list was directly sent to Wang Shi's hands. It just so happened that he saw it. It was very difficult to maintain his composure. With such a generous gift, how could he return the gift? Madame Luo did not care much and followed the rules. In this way, the Luo family had profited greatly. So it's like this." Luo Peishan nodded. Sure enough, everything in Jin Qin Wang's hands is good. Everyone else nodded in agreement. Wasn't that so? This marriage with Jin Qin Wang was not entirely a bad thing. As before in Jin Qin Wang's heart, he really cared about their family's miss as much as he showed. That was the best. The children did not eat much before they left the table, and began to play with the lanterns in the pond. Compared to the flower lanterns, the fruit lanterns were naturally more playable. In this way, almost an hour passed. The elders continued, and the younger generation prepared to go out to play. This would definitely not be possible on normal days, but today there was no curfew, so they could play all night. The little bean children impatiently watched their older brothers and sisters go out. Even if Madame Luo relaxed the conditions to go out this year, it was still stuck at the age of 10. The happiest were probably the 4 branches D twins. This year they entered the capital, just in time. Standing outside the gate, they could see that in front of each household, there were already lanterns everywhere on the walls. Although they could not see further, the lanterns seemed to illuminate the night sky, no less than a glazed world. Playing with lanterns during the Mid-Autumn Festival did not have a large lantern festival like the Lantern Festival, but it also had its own uniqueness. Almost all the households were going out at this time, moving forward neither fast nor slow. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653281. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website, Bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.